and Zoning Commission for Thursday, July 20th. We invite you to join us in salute to the flag, but first I ask for a minute of silence for a gentleman who passed away that we all knew and admired, who was just loved the town and his country, and that's Red Edgar. The moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In case of fire, there are two ways to exit the chambers. To my left, you'd exit through the council chambers doors, turn left, walk down a flight of stairs and out of the building. Or the best way, perhaps, is at the rear of the chambers through the double doors. In either case, once you're outside of the building, please walk a safe distance away from the building. Secretary, please take the roll.
Charles Duran.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Rich Suzak is here.
Approval of minutes, April 20th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for April 20th.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any additions, errors, or omissions?
I did notice one on the first page. In the roll call, my name is spelled wrong. And that's forgiven.
She spelled Richard wrong?
S-U-Z-A-K.
Okay, anything further?
No? Looked like a good job on that one.
Okay. Minutes of April 27th.
We gotta vote
This
on
was
one.
a,
Gotta vote on this one.
oh, I'm sorry. They just moving ahead.
Too fast.
Okay. All in favor as amended. It's unanimous. Thank you, Charlie. Keep me right.
Keep it right.
Okay, minutes of June 1st. No, April 27th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for April 27th.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any errors, omissions,
No, didn't see any. Looked good.
no corrections? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Now, June 1st.
All right. Make a motion to approve the minutes for Thursday, June 1st.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any additions, errors, or commissions?
Unfortunately, I did find a couple. Page 6. Bottom paragraph, third line. I think that word should be previous development was stagnant, not pervious. Page 9.
I should have noticed that.
Second paragraph.
Did he say that? No.
Oh, second up from the bottom, I'm sorry. You have correct tree caliber, it should be caliper. Caliper's a measuring device, that's how they measure them. And on page 10, paragraph 5, same word, same spelling. That's it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
at the bottom of page 6, it's an alternate spelling for my last name. Just about in the center of the page, 6 at the bottom. L-E, small f.
Anything further?
What was it?
Mr. Chair, on page 2,
Okay.
I wonder whether, in the middle of the paragraph, when we took a commission, a
Six?
recess, was that thing?
Oh, up
that
here, okay.
time supposed to be 7:37 instead of 8:37? Because I think that was at the beginning of our meeting, and we really didn't go through any other, I guess, applications other than that first one. And realistically, it shouldn't have taken us more than a half an hour or so, not an hour.
I don't remember.
I have no idea.
Maybe we should check on that then.
What was the problem?
Well, you don't know the time of the liquor store application.
Well-
We aren't timing on
Yeah,
that.
well, I think they were first, and I think that our agenda had indicated that it started at 7:30, and so they arrived shortly after 7:30. And then when we saw them arrive, we sort of did,
We went back.
we went back and let them, rather than, continue it, and we didn't do any other business at that time either. So if we did another,
Well, maybe it is 7:37 then.
yeah, if we did another, application, then it could have taken more time, but because we didn't.
Any suggestions from anyone? Yeah, okay. The other thing is, anything else, Rich?
Just on page 7, like, where I made a motion in terms of, I think that the special use permit was to relocate to another retail space within the same plaza, and maybe not another building, because there are other buildings on that plaza site, but they're separate standalone buildings, and this is one continuous building.
Yes, it
They
is.
just moved from one section to the other section, so just to avoid confusion.
In the, to public hearing 2866, the paragraph after that, Chairman Duran, it says, asked about public participation. It should be called for public participation. And page 7. The commission requested a traffic report by the police department.
Seven.
We not only asked that, we asked for a home, the location of the homes and the contours of this is on the top, on page 7 at the top, on the first, where the developer enters through Moody Road, and the commission requested a traffic report by the police department. It should also include, we asked about the home locations and the type of homes and the elevations that they were to be set on. In fact, that's what we're waiting for tonight. And it was at the request of the town engineer had requested that too.
Actually, we got that on our prints package.
Right, well, that's what we'd asked for, and I thought that should be in the minutes at least. And that's all I have.
I just had one thing, Mr. Chair. On the bottom, since these go into the town clerk's office, the regular meeting, the date should be changed from April 6th to June 1st. On the footnotes?
Oh,
Yeah, did you call that?
Okay.
reads that anyway.
I didn't even notice that.
Is it okay I share with them the other correction that we already made?
Sure.
We had Ginny Giggly in the
Yes.
minutes.
Okay,
Not a problem.
because the motion's been made, all in favor as amended, unanimous, I guess. Oh, and one abstention, sorry. I didn't ask for it. Get me fouled up. Okay, and I have on my agenda that there's a July 6th, but they weren't in the packet, or in my packet anyway.
Mr. Chairman, July 6th is the minutes of the meeting that is under appeal to Superior Court, and we're taking a little bit longer to make sure the minutes are absolutely correct.
Okay. Let's see, then moving along. At this point in the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, we welcome comments, concerns, and opinions relating to planning and zoning in Enfield from anyone who's present, provided no one may discuss any matter of business at this time that is elsewhere on the agenda, any matter that's part of an open public hearing of the commission, or any matter where a commission decision is pending. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission under those conditions? Anyone would like to address the commission under those conditions? Last call under those conditions to address the commission. Hearing none, we'll move right along. There are no bond releases, apparently. Well, we had several, and whatever happened, they decided not to go through with it, or what are we doing?
There are several bond releases in the works. I think they will be on your next meeting agenda, given the length of tonight's meeting, I think.
Okay. Old business, public hearing 2857. And this is, Secretary, because this was denied without prejudice, you'll have to take the roll and read the legal notice.
Charles Durin,
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard,
Here.
Nick Lefakis,
Here.
Charles Ladd,
Here.
Mary Scott,
Here.
Virginia Higley,
Here.
Linda DeGray,
Here.
and Richard Suzak is here. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 20th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2857, 41 Hazard Avenue, Olive Garden application for remodeling of dining, lobby, and bar area, new exterior tower feature at building entrance, exterior facade changes to the building, map 56, lot 1, business regional zone, and that was dated July 7th, 2017. Charles Durin, Chairman. Information is available at the Town Planning Office, Enfield Town Hall, and that occurred in the Journal Enquirer July 8th, 2017, and July 17th, 2017.
Just engineering had no comments, the building department did not have any comments. North Central Health Department had no comments as of 7/17. Water Pollution, no comments of 7/17. And police had no comments. The fire department said there's no real change in layout that will greatly impact the fire department operation or access to the building. The only issue they had is during construction of the new tower work with the staging and material setup of either cranes or lifts which may impact the fire lane. And if such areas are to be established, shown on a drawing and include the construction trailers, fencing, structures, and so forth. And I'd leave that up to the company.
They're asking you to turn your mic on, sir.
It is on now.
Oh, he's saying he can't hear you in the control
My
booth.
loyal vice chairman turned it on for
I
me.
just put it on.
All right. Mr. Chairman, there were two things that you specifically asked for. One was a photometric lighting plan on what's going to happen when they light
To
it
keep
up.
the light out of the sky,
Yeah.
right.
And you have that, and then the other was material samples, and the smallest person in the room just went upstairs to bring down the heavy samples for you, because we forgot to bring them down ahead of time. So maybe if you want to speak to the photogrammic map first, and then the samples will arrive.
Yeah, I believe we provided a photometric of the site lighting. It should show that there is no uplighting. The two lights at the top of the tower will be removed, as requested in the previous meeting. Otherwise, the photometric plan should be to your liking. As for the materials, you guys, the commission specifically requested physical material samples instead of just the small paint chips. So I apologize for the size of them.
Oh, I guess. It gives all the measures all the way up and down the building for the
The
lights.
smaller the number, the less illumination, and the higher the number, the more illumination. I think if you look at the plan, it's lit up the most above the entrance, focused on the tower, and then the two corners of the tower, and then as it disperses out, it looks like it pretty well calms down, so the way I read it, it seemed to be acceptable, and
I think Rich also was questioning looked like the support of the towers changed the frontage.
Yeah, I did look at it again, and I think it really doesn't impact that. I was mistaken in terms of when I did look at it, I thought that you were expanding it further, but you're just really applying your new surface to the existing construction that's there. So basically, it's just like a veneer. It really doesn't have
Correct.
any real depth. I thought you were actually going to be
No.
building it out again.
It does not increase the
it-
footprint of the building
Yeah,
significantly at all.
it was an illusion in my head.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
then we did our job right.
this is the exit This is the rough front of the trellis, and this is the canopy. And I'll see if I can find anything else.
Merry Christmas.
Sandwiches?
This is the exterior metal.
That's really obscure.
I guess they did send you everything, huh? Oh, that's a good combination.
This side, Charlie.
Yeah, right. It is?
Yeah, the metal roof.
You don't see too much of that. That's this side too, right? Yeah.
This is the
Where's this going?
Art Bronze.
That's the tower itself.
There's a closing close.
If you, do you guys have a copy of the colored elevations?
I got it.
You want your rocks?
They want to go there.
There it is.
Look at the name of that one. Old World Room.
Goes along with it. The song is just.
It's rough.
And then what you have on your desk there is the stonework that's going to be on the front.
Nice.
It's going to look very nice when it's finished,
So,
and
yeah,
thank you for taking the time
you
to
very
show it
much.
to us all.
okay. Any questions from the commission?
Because you did include a planting plan.
It was requested at the
Yeah.
last meeting.
Yeah, that was another.
So is this a documentation of the existing plants that are there right now?
I believe it is, and then if there's any, there was a landscape note on the cover sheet that was questioned at the last meeting. What we typically do is that if the contractor disturbs any of the existing landscape, they're supposed to replace it. The comment was that, how do we know what's there currently? So this is a documentation of what's there existing currently. If the contractor is to damage any of the existing landscape during the renovation, he's to replace it like for like.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then I'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call, speak in favor or against the application. Roger?
No, Mr. Chairman, we provided you with a draft resolution, and staff is recommending it with our normal conditions of approval and two specific recommendations. One, that the applicant designate disabled parking spaces and post the new signs that are now required. And should the proposed new lighting for the tower and sign cause light or glare to affect neighboring properties, then the light must be adjusted so as not to impact the neighbors. That is a note that's on their drawing, but I just wanted to reinforce it.
It should, right, thank you. Rich is taken care of, too? You all set with you? Okay, because I know Peter always checked what he had. Okay. All right to close it? Okay. Then I'll close public hearing 2857.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Today's the
Question on this.
July.
Public hearing opened on April 20th, or should we go to today?
July 20th.
Yeah, it really should be open today because good catch, Mr. Chairman.
No, I didn't do it. I'll give credit where credit's due.
You mean it was Mary?
It was Mary, yep.
Did it again.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you desire.
I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing 2857, special use permit and site plan approval for interior remodeling of dining, lobby, bar area, exterior remodeling, new tower feature at building entrance, and minor facade changes. 41 Hazard Ave, map 056, lot 0001, applicant GMRI Incorporated, Olive Garden Restaurant. Whereas the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed a special use permit, public hearing 2857, for interior and exterior remodeling of the Olive Garden Restaurant, and whereas a public hearing was opened on July 20th, 2017, and closed on July 20th, 2017, and whereas the applicant has been found to be in general conformity to the Enfield Planning and Zoning regulations, now therefore be it resolved, the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves application public hearing 2857 for interior and exterior remodeling at 41 Hazard Ave, Business Regional BR Zone, in accordance with the submitted application narrative and reference plans approved with the with 26 conditions of approval in a memo dated or draft resolution dated July 20th, 2017, prepared by the Planning Department.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Does the applicant have any problems with the conditions?
No.
Any discussion? Did we have, yeah. The motion's been made and seconded.
Looks like it's
Okay.
gonna be a good job.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. I think it approves the building for the town and upgrades. Very nice, making it very nice additions.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Okay. Let's get back. Public hearing 2868, 472 Taylor Road. Again, this was denied at one meeting, and the applicant is back, and the secretary will have to take the roll and read the legal notice.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
And Rich Suzak is here. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 20th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2868, 472 Taylor Road, approval of a 39-lot build-out of previously approved Shaker Heights Senior Residential Development with modifications. Kent Picoy and Sons Construction, Inc., owner. Kent Picoy, applicant, map 111, lot 245, R44 zone, residential 44.
The applicant's-
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that the commission make a motion to include in the record all of the materials and comments submitted on the previous application in order to not have to go through that record again.
Oh, yeah.
About our comments? You need
No,
our
include,
comments on it?
include.
Yeah,
all-
yeah, I mean, you have the minutes and you have the materials that were submitted, but there were petitions submitted and there were
Include-
neighbor comments and
All
that.
parts of the last
Yeah, yeah,
year.
all, the complete record of the prior hearings on this topic be entered into the record.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we include the complete record of the previous public hearing in our
In our minutes.
in our
Minutes of this meeting.
in the minutes of this meeting and as part of the documentation for the record of this meeting.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Welcome again.
Thank you. Lawrence Lloyd, Jackie Varney, Ken Pecoy. When we were here last, the commission had some questions on the house plans that we showed relative to standard materials, and there was a little confusion. We thought about names of the plans using, for instance, Summers 1 and Summers 2 as plans. So we've made some modification to the names. These are the names that we plan to go out into the market with. We'll use them internally, use them in terms of public marketing. So we'd like to offer the opportunity to walk back through those plans if you have any questions or want to talk about the standard materials. Second, you also asked for a site plan that would demonstrate where these 8 footprints would fit on the remaining lots on the property. So we've submitted that plan as well and hope that the legend that was put on that plan was easy to follow, basically showing what plan fits where. So either of those tasks, would you like some further explanation on either of those plans?
You know, I would, in terms of, when I looked at it, you indicate, I guess, 2 separate plans, but you call them the same. It would have been nice if one was called, Picoy enlarged or Picoy, small, so that we can sort of determine which one you're going to be using. And I guess the other question I have, in terms of these footprints, does this include all the possibilities of all the different patios and decks that can go on there, or just the actual physical characteristics of the footprint of the main building structure?
Can you answer that?
Main building structures.
That's the main building structure.
Okay, so basically, they can actually grow if there was a deck or a patio or something else that was added to it. So this is just the physical characteristics of the foundations of the building.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Because I do have some questions if that's the case.
Okay.
Because I guess when I look here, I guess the area that I was really concerned of is, I guess, the south end of the building. Your lot number 67, in terms of, that's the area that has that steep incline, or there's a significant, I guess, change in elevation between the lower level and the upper level. And, right now, if you take a look at, the footprint that's indicated there, it's right at the head of the slope. There really is no room to add anything beyond or to the, I guess, this west of that, building, because it would start going down the slope. So,
Correct.
so,
There is not an option there for that.
okay, so there would not be possibly a deck on that one.
Anything
And,
that was done on that one would have to go to the side if that was even possible. So
Okay.
much of this is determined, when you build them, what's,
right. And again, it's one of those kind of things where this is probably the best view, and if somebody had, an inclination to go out and have a glass of wine or something and watch the sunset, you know what? He's going to have a first big step. So, and I'm just pointing that out, that, this is sort of the reality of what you're showing us, and I'm just wondering, is this sort of the best scenario for possibly one of the better lots on this particular site?
yeah, no, that's not possible on that lot. There are some limitations with these lots, obviously, because of the grades. The intent was just to show that the footprint worked. And, porches and that stuff are optional.
You're going to have a microphone so they're not picking you up in the control room. You're on live TV.
All right, thank you. I just want to sort of make sure that I was aware of what you're showing on that plan, because it wasn't actually clear.
Yeah, we wouldn't put anything here. It's pretty steep grades.
Any better?
May I ask, do you have the comments from all the departments? Because engineering was still at 7:13. They still said we will be receiving a revised site plan showing location and revised building footprints for the 4 new styled houses, and receive corrected changes to site plan and homes, 7:13, and no comments of 7:17. Building Department had no comments. North Central Health District, no comments. Water pollution, no comments. I'm particularly concerned, have you seen the Police Department comments? And they're concerned using the Moody Road exit and entrance. It was referring to the officers that were out there. He determined it would be unsafe for large trucks to enter or exit from this road. He took into consideration the width of the road and the line of sight concern with vehicles that are traveling east on Moody Road. And then it said, please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Deputy Chief Gary Collins. So their answer to use of that road is no.
We are aware of that.
You are aware? Okay. Questions from any of the other commissioners?
Just along those same lines, so what you're saying is that all the traffic will be coming off of North Street?
No, we're not saying that. When we were here last week, we broached that subject because it came up in meetings we had with the homeowners association. And you had a little bit of a discussion amongst yourselves about would that work, what concerns there might be in using it as ingress or egress. And we were just listening to that conversation. We know the homeowners association has submitted a letter in favor of using that road, but we know the final say on that matter is not ours.
So they'll be using Taylor Road, Rich.
There's Taylor Road. They'll be using Taylor
Oh,
Road. It's the only way they can.
Right, okay, I'm sorry, Taylor Road.
The only question I have, and I didn't have a chance to ask the applicant before the meeting, but when you submitted the site plan with the elevation drawings on it, the question was asked by engineering, was it an A2 survey? And the answer came back, no, it was only a T2 survey, which is topographic. So I went back and looked at the original approval on this application, and none of the maps submitted when it was originally approved the first time around had an A2 survey. So I'm not sure, how are we going to deal with what the lots actually are without an A2 survey, so one of the conditions of approval, unless there is an existing A2 survey I'm not aware of, there isn't one in any of the files, is that so we recommended a condition of approval that site plan that shows the area of the lots is actually an A2 survey.
Okay.
Is that in your,
The recommended conditions, to discuss it with the applicant, so I just wanted to give them an opportunity to address it.
okay. Have you had a chance to look at the conditions?
No.
Okay. Yeah, let me give this to you, take a look at it.
There's 7 to 11 is the only thing you really got to pay attention to. The others are standard conditions that would be required anyhow.
Any,
I have one question. Under the maintenance note, it said that the developer or association shall conduct semi-annual inspections of the pond, outlet structure, and culverts. I'm not familiar with the original approvals, but could you tell me what your semi-annual, is it like June and January, or just for my own benefits?
I would say it's more like spring and fall, because that's when most of the work will be going on there.
Okay, thank
Keeping
you,
in mind that everything's grown in over there now, so it's pretty stable.
thank you.
any further questions?
7 through 11. Do you have
Well,
any issues on those?
I'm trying to find it, Mr. Chairman, but one of the conditions that we had written in, and I'm just not finding it at the moment, is right now you have an unfinished road there, and so I wrote a condition that you wouldn't get a CO on a house until the road was finished.
Number 10.
I think that's number 2.
Okay, so that's something the applicant should be aware of.
Mary says it's number 10.
Okay, good. That Mary, what are we going to do without her?
I don't know.
No, never.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question for you on site-specific conditions. Item number 10, this condition is saying that we need to put the top coat of asphalt on before any COs are issued.
So top layer.
Oh, that's zoning compliance, but that's not a CO.
We can't control a CO from the standpoint of we can't say when you can get a CO, but the fact of the matter is you can't get a CO without a certificate of zoning compliance, which is when we sign off on the CO. So it's just better form to write it to say you can't get a certificate of zoning compliance than to say you can't get a CO. The practical effect is you can't get a CO.
Okay. Until the road's finished. In other words, they don't
Because
want to.
what happens is you have to submit a certificate of zoning compliance where, which is the as-built. We have to inspect it, and then we either give you a conditional certificate of zoning compliance or we give you a full thing. But in the absence of either one, the building official by law can't give you a CO.
So what you're saying, Roger, is the whole road has to be paved for to get any,
Thing is, depending on how they build it, if they build like 2 houses, then the road's got to be built past those 2 houses. If they build the next 2 houses, so it's up to them when they build it. We're trying to avoid a situation where you have a house built way down the end and the road is not.
Yeah, you say top layer of the surface of the road.
Well,
That would be
because the road is in except for the final layer at the present time. Is that correct?
That's right, the binder coat is down.
Yeah. So you're saying that the road has to be finished.
The final
by
top layer would be in before somebody would move into the house. That's in front, the road in front of that house.
And that doesn't make any sense to us because typically we wait to do the surface coat of the road after most of the houses that are done, just to preserve the quality of the road. I don't think in our experience we've ever had a circumstance where this was a condition.
I've never seen that.
Well, I mean, it's up to the commission, but I've seen situations where, you know, you have, you know, a few houses down the end of a road and the road sits there not being built for several years. So it's totally in the purview of the commission to decide how you want to handle it. If you're comfortable with a binder coat, and somebody could live there for 5 to 10
Well,
years.
you're holding a bond.
No, see, we don't. In the past, you could bond for site improvements on the site. We don't bond for site improvements anymore based upon court rulings. But so the applicant will have to post a bond for site restoration and for landscaping and for soil and erosion control, but not actually for the road. And so, in theory, they could put all the houses in, the COs could be there, and the road could never get done. I'm not saying these gentlemen would do it, but I'm saying in the absence of some mechanism that says, when are you going to finish the road?
What could we reword that?
My question would be, Roger, though, why would you want to bring in a load of asphalt and only go 2/3 or a third of the
Well,
road?
I mean, you can say the whole road ought to be paved tomorrow. I mean, all I'm saying is if you're going to build houses on that road, the road should be finished.
Yeah, I think,
I mean, not that you can build them, that you can be unfinished while you're building them, but before somebody actually moves in, the road in front of their house ought to be finished.
it depends on how a developer builds a subdivision. If you're going to go A, B, C, D, then it wouldn't be an issue. But if you're going to go and buy the furthest lot out, and there's still a whole bunch that are empty.
See, when this was approved, it was
Well, see,
approved
that's
in
the way
phases.
He's planning to build.
Yeah, I know, that's why.
Right,
When
that's
this-
what we
when this-
talked about last time, is
Right.
not phasing one by one.
Right.
We like to create some market competition for home sites.
That's what
And
Roger-
what we'd
Roger
like to
put
do is
that
just
in.
be able to build wherever someone wants to build, and then just fill in as we go.
Regarding
had-
the top coat of asphalt, though, what I would ask is that, I understand your concern, but we want to get as much construction done up there as possible.
Yeah, I
Before that
understand.
top coat goes on. You know, beat the binder up, whatever ruts are and everything, when we put a leveling coat on there, it's good for, 20 years once we're done.
Yeah.
We typically wouldn't put that in until the last 3 or 4 houses were being completed.
How could we word it then?
I don't know, but if you did the last house on the road first, you would have a whole road of binder while you're building all the others.
Yeah.
But if
Right, typically, we would build off the binder. One project I just did, we're down to the last 5 lots, and I just put the top coat on. But the triaxles and the concrete trucks would do all the damage.
Sure they would.
I know. That's what I was saying. You wouldn't want to do the first 3 on
No.
a road and then have concrete trucks going to the end. And
Right,
Yeah.
right. Or just, seams where we don't need them, that sort of thing. It's just
Yeah,
nicer to,
Seams too. If
Yes.
you're paving a road, you usually do the whole road.
right.
But we
Well,
don't,
there should be some requirement then, because on terms of when does the road have to be done? Does
Yes.
the road have to be done prior to the last 3 houses, prior to something? Because other than that, there's no way of saying we're going to have to chase somebody if the road doesn't get built, doesn't get finished.
What if we
that's,
put a 5-year date line on it then?
No, what I'm saying is,
What if it's done in
if
5 years?
they can get a building permit and a CO for all the houses without ever having to put the binder coat on.
No, binder coat is on.
Well, no, I meant yes, you're correct. I meant the top coat. So, you know what driving over a binder coat is?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a road under construction. So, the question is, what mechanism, and if the applicant would agree to a performance bond for that binder, for that finish coat, then that may be a way to resolve the issue.
As a question, in terms of during the wintertime, who's going to be plowing that road? Is Is the town going to be plowing it? Because if the town's going to plow it, the town shouldn't be, running in.
It's a private
It's not
road.
gonna touch it until
Private
it's
road.
accepted.
Right. So it's a private road, and they take care of their own.
Well, who's plowing it now?
I think homeowners association has a contract to do that.
Yeah,
All right. So
not that one.
Well, there are two cul-de-sac loops I can think of off the top of my head, probably aren't plowed at the moment because there are no homes up on those, but there is one unfinished cul-de-sac that would be plowed, and that has a, just binder coat road on it.
If
I
a
think-
performance bond
Yeah.
can be a viable alternative, that might be something to think about, because I'm sure that these individuals will be very successful, but as a resident of the town, I've seen subdivisions that
Yeah, we
were
got
never
stuff.
really totally built out. And so they kind of linger. And even though it's a private road, and even though it wouldn't be a town issue, when the people come in complaining because they pay taxes and they don't have good roads, if worst case scenario, I think a performance bond would be a good idea, if it could be legally, and if the developer were,
I tend to try to stay away from performance bonds for a whole host of reasons. But what, I would be willing to do is the last 3 or 4 lots, just not release a CO on those until the binder coat was on. Typically, that's when that's when the top coat is going to go on, because we'll put those 3 foundations or 4
You
foundations
could word it
in.
that way.
And then after the foundations are in, then we would run the top
Not
coat.
allow the last,
After that.
could we say a percentage of the houses in terms of 75%? At that point, it's like you're at the end of the road, or so to say.
No
But-
pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. But the thing is, I think that, something like 75%, 60, 2/3, 3/4, I think that that's a reasonable amount. I think that, you don't necessarily have to do that, but, there could be some, lots that are really not desirable, and there might be 3 of them, and they might, linger and linger for a significant period of time, but if we made it, 3/4 of the lots, I think that I would be, comfortable with something like that. And I'm not sure if you would, that's, again, it's, if we're looking at 40 lots, we'd be talking, once you complete 30 lots, you'd have the last 10. And again, 10 isn't, it's just about done, so I think that kind of language would probably make a little more sense.
I'm fine with that. The longer we can go, the longer the top coat's
you'd have
gonna
no
last.
problem with that type of wording? All right, well, then,
Word it that way, then.
let's word it that way then.
Yeah, the top coat of the road has to be completed once you've reached 75% of the 39 lots. And there would be no certificate of zoning compliance issued on for the remaining houses until it was.
Right. And that's acceptable to you, then? That would be okay?
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, we worked that out then, that's good. Okay. Anything further? Any other problems?
I do, well, not problems, just some comments.
Okay.
I've seen our application listed as 38 lots. I just want to make a clarification. It is 39, and Roger just mentioned that. It's 38 homes standing. That's what we wrote in our application. 77 minus 38 is 39 lots. That's what's on the site plan.
Okay, so
So I want to make sure we got that. And the other thing that we wanted to ask for is a 10-year approval on this, too. Just ask for your consideration of that.
I don't know, are we
A
limited?
20-year approval?
No, 10.
Yeah, 10, yeah, okay. So what he's saying is that we're considering this a new application rather than a phase 3 and 4 of the original
I
Shaker
understand
Heights.
the way
Yeah,
they're building, and
yeah, and we recommended that, and that's the way we drafted the resolution.
that sounds reasonable.
Do we have to change any wording in the?
No.
Okay, so we're changing the wording on number 10.
So
Mary, you got that down?
I kind of I guess, would it make sense to say certificates of zoning compliance for 25% of the lots will not be issued until the top layer surface of the roads have been completed? Is that,
That's the same thing.
okay. I'm just trying to. flip
And
it around to
Mary,
make
you,
sense.
the second whereas has got to only include July 20th.
Yeah, that needs to be, I already made that correction. I already did that. I'm already on top of that there.
Well, it's 75%. The houses are completed, the road has to be completed.
Okay.
25%.
Any further questions from the commission? And anything else from the applicant? And I'll open it up to the public.
No.
Okay?
So if you guys would let the public come up,
Yeah.
and then you can come back if they want
And you
to.
can come back if you think you need to. And anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against, you can keep that. Yeah,
Once, for,
anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application?
no,
Anyone in the public would like to
Certificate
speak in
of
favor or against this application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. Roger, any reason?
No, it's
Not to
no
close
reason
it?
to keep it open, Mr. Chairman. I think that the commission has worked out, and the applicant's been very cooperative, and this would be a great addition to the town, and I
Sure
would,
will.
recommend you close the public hearing.
And I think a lot of people will be happy to see it going. And I like the looks of the new buildings, too. Okay, then I'll close public hearing 2865. What's the desire of the commission?
I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing 2868, 472 Taylor Road, whereas the infill planning and zoning.
2865, I believe.
68.
68?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, yes.
Whereas the
I'm sorry.
Infill Planning and Zoning Commission has received a special use permit application for the approval of a senior residential development for 39 lots in the Shaker Heights Senior Residential Development located at 472 Taylor Road, map 111, lot 0245, residential R44 zone. And whereas a public hearing was held on July 20th, 2017, now therefore be it resolved, the Infill Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves public hearing 2868 for 4 new house elevation drawings for the remaining 39 lots. Yeah. In the Shaker Heights Senior Residential Development located at 472 Taylor Road according to the below referenced plans and with the following conditions. And conditions 1 of 28 with a modification to condition number 10, which will say that the certificates of zoning compliance for individual lots will not be issued until the top layer surface of the roads have been completed once they reach 75% of the 39 lots. And this was in a memo dated July 20th, 2017 from the Planning Department.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion. Roger, I haven't had a chance. Is the
which
Police
condition was not using the Taylor Road? Heard of.
It was right here.
It's in conditions.
okay,
It's right here.
okay,
This is for the site for Taylor Road.
thank you. Okay, just wanted to make sure it's there. Okay, any discussion?
No, it's
Hearing
going to be a
none.
nice project.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions unanimous? And thank you for taking on that project and finishing it. It really ought to look really nice and quite an addition to that part of town. Yep. Okay.
The weather holds up.
Yeah.
Zoning text amendment.
Where are we?
2865. Blew my slip.
Public hearing 2865, 54 Hazard Avenue, application for an urgent care facility. Secretary, please read the legal notice and take the attendance.
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 20th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2865, 54 Hazard Avenue, application for an urgent care facility, Enfield Station LLC owner, Daniel Choi applicant, map 56, lot 26, business regional zone. And that was in the Journal Enquirer on July 8th and July 17th. The attendance is Charles Duran.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
And Rich Suzak is here.
I'm not coughing.
You will be.
Good evening, and welcome to our town. And if you'll tell the commission what it is you're planning to do and operate.
Absolutely. Thank you all for the time. Good evening. My name is Matthew Sanderleaf. I'm the Construction and Facilities Manager for Go Health Urgent Care. We have partnered with Hartford Healthcare to bring new urgent care experience to the Hartford region. My team is seeking approval to open a 2,321 square foot urgent care center at 54 Hazard Avenue. We will occupy the vacant storefront next to Smashburger. Our urgent care center is a great addition to the community because we'll provide convenient access to medical care for issues such as colds, fevers, x-rays, broken bones. We'll be open 365 days, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. The center will have 2 to 5 trained medical staff, RTs, MAs, and providers, and we'll expect to see 3 to 5 patients per hour at capacity. We do not store any narcotics on site. We lock up all of our medical waste, and that's carted off by a private carting company. Go Health is partnered across the country. We currently handle the day-to-day operations of 60 urgent care centers. With me is Manny Singh, who's our senior manager. He will be handling the day-to-day operations of the center, and he's also on hand to answer any questions. With me, I've brought a little bit of a slideshow that I will hand out that kind of gives you the detail and feel of our center. And if you have any questions on that, Manny's going to address that so you can get a feel of how we operate. And I will be available to answer any questions in regards to the construction and the build-out. Manny, you want to start?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening to the board. Thank you for allowing us to meet with you this evening. So as Matt mentioned before, we are a urgent care that partners with leading health systems. And in this market, we've partnered with Hartford Healthcare. And there's the primary reason why we partner with health systems is to provide patients with access to the larger continuum of care. What I mean by that is many of you, much like myself, have probably sought care in a outpatient setting and have been given the requirement to seek follow-up care. And it's oftentimes a list, and it's more so like, good luck, you're on your own. Our partnership with Hartford Healthcare allows us to same day make appointments for our patients so they can seek that much needed orthopedic care, that much needed ENT care, all different subspecialties. So as many of you are aware, the Hartford Healthcare system has a very large footprint across the Hartford metro area, and that has certainly been beneficial to our patients. We generally operate where our patients work, where they run their errands, so we're incredibly convenient. Our centers generally have a small footprint. We have 4 to 5 exam rooms. In this particular center, we're going to have 4 exam rooms. So as Matt mentioned before, we'll have a max number of staff at around 3 to 4 at any given time. So generally, parking is not an issue. A few other things I wanted to talk about is we do see all different types of patients in terms of acuity. We do have patients that periodically come in for IV therapy or sicker patients that have the need to have any kind of cardiac workup, and oftentimes those patients do require ambulance. And that's a very small percentage of our overall population. I would say less than 3% of our patients require ED transport, and that's oftentimes done via local ambulance. We do call 911. And as far as our general population, these are patients that are walking, that have, like Matt mentioned before, a sore throat, a cough, something that can be resolved readily, and they're on their way and can move forward with their busy lives. Another important feature that we'll bring to the community is X-ray abilities. There are a number of healthcare facilities in Enfield, but not many that offer X-ray ability in center. So we are the, I believe, one of the 3 urgent cares across the nation that offer mobile X-ray. Mobile X-ray is a X-ray unit that travels to patient exam rooms to really heighten that comfort level for patients that are not mobile. So we look forward to operating in this community, serving the patients, and really delivering that patient-centric care that Go Health has come to be known for.
Questions for the commission?
That mobile X-ray, is that something to be parked outside of your facility, or?
No, not at all, sir. It's actually a very small unit, about yay wide, and mobile in respect to we can move it within the center, as opposed to having a stationary X-ray in a typical healthcare setting where patients are generally forced to be uncomfortable and walk to the back of the facility.
Any questions further?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On page 4, what is the visibility of people that are standing outside that room looking in?
Sure, I'm happy to speak to that. So slide 4 is a slide that we're very proud of. We recently won a design award by ICSC, which is a International Design Institute, I believe. And to your point, the glass in this picture is transparent. You can see both ways in and out, but we use something called smart glass. So upon entry of a patient or anybody, it could be a staff member, with the flip of a switch, all the glass gets frosted to ensure full privacy. It's a marketing tactic where, since our setting is not the conventional healthcare setting, oftentimes patients walk by and wonder what's going on in there, and if they're able to see into the exam rooms and see medical equipment, it's worked out in our favor in educating the communities and the services we offer.
It's too bad, since you're going out over TV, that you didn't have this on your computer or whatnot, because people at home will be able to see it. Believe it or not, we have quite a few viewers. Any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question, because in your application, you did, in your letter, you're saying you're going to offer education programs such as CPR, flu clinics, and physicals, fine, flu shots and physicals, but I'm looking at your plan here, and I don't see a place where you'd be able to hold a CPR class.
Sure, I can speak to that. So we are very heavily invested in our communities. We're not only patient-centric, we're community-centric, and we have a very strong approach to educating our communities on personal wellness, really avoiding facilities where they need to seek care. So what we oftentimes do is we hold clinics, and it's more of a clinic in respect to welcoming the community into our center. We'll shut down an exam room. We may do it after hours. A good example is in our Avon location that is currently in operation due to the large incidence of tick-related patient visits to our center. We've recognized there's a need to educate the community on how to appropriately remove ticks. So we are going to be hosting in several weeks a tick removal clinic in our Avon center throughout the day. So we will be in operation, and we'll have a separate clinician and support staff to educate the community that does visit our centers. Alternatively, we're holding several other clinics in respect to seasonality. There's different types of illnesses that we encounter throughout the year. We'll likely be holding CPR classes sometime in the near future if that's what the community warrants, and those would generally be done after hours, post 5 p.m. on weekends, which is generally convenient for most folks.
Okay, I understand you're going to hold it after hours, but where in this facility would you hold that? Because you've got a reception area, you've got 4 exam rooms, so, that are filled with equipment. Where are you going to hold these clinics, is my question.
Yeah.
Since I've taken CPR multiple times, people are, got to use the dummies and that, so.
Sure, that's a great question. So we do have the opportunity after hours, as I mentioned before, to have several clinicians on site and host small groups, whether it be in the waiting area, whether it be in the exam rooms, wherever the space really allows. And we're certainly able to bring all the equipment out of an exam room if needed, because I would say 95% of our equipment is mobile, including the X-ray unit.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit extra to that, it's not your typical sit down with chairs, formal type of training. It'll be much more hands-on and interactive in our settings, because they are small and it's 2,300 square feet, and we are limited at the number of people we can actually provide care to in the center. I think our maximum capacity is 23 or 25 people, and it would never reach that number.
Go ahead.
This looks wonderful, but that's a very busy plaza. And I noticed that when Cox TV is in there, they have so many spots for their customers, and it's a timed limit, although nobody enforces it. How many employees will be there throughout the day? In other words, at any one time, how many employees would you have? Where are they going to park? And is there any handicapped parking in the area for your clients that aren't quite ambulatory?
Sure, so I'll answer the question about the employee parking. I'll defer to Matt for the handicap parking if they're designated in the area. So a minimum of 2 employees and a maximum of 3 at any given time. And as far as parking goes, I really haven't seen the location, but generally we do advise our team to park at a distant space from the actual entryway of the site, allowing our patients to have ample parking when they're visiting us.
Yeah, and just to speak on the handicap parking, so a couple things. If you refer to the site plan, here it is, A5, you'll see the handicap parking is designated at the corner of the building at Smashburger. There's 2 designated parking spots for handicap. Across the
Smashburger, weren't they?
Well, they are adjacent to Smashburger, but
But I thought they were
as
bigger.
long as they're also available to the urgent care, I don't think there would be a separate requirement.
Well, I was just wondering
Yeah.
because of the number.
Basically, it's for every 25 parking spaces,
Okay.
you would need a disabled space. I think one of the things, Mr. Chairman, that you mentioned early on this thing was, and the EMS did at the ART, was, and this gentleman mentioned 911 because I've had this conversation about what happens to an ambulance, and EMS has been concerned that at some other urgent care facilities in Enfield, they have to, back the ambulance up quite a distance away, and with respect to a stretcher, so I kept asking urgent care whether we're going to do it. When the site plan finally came in, I think it does where the handicap disabled parking spaces are. There is that ramp there for a van accessible ramp that goes right into the sidewalk. So I think it will work out nicely that EMS could back their ambulance right up in there because there would never be anybody in that space. So we tried to be responsive to that issue which you had raised.
Okay, I didn't see anything from the EMS, and that's was something that goes along with that.
Yeah, that was a comment EMS made at the ART we had.
Okay. Jenny, anything more?
Thank you. That addresses my concerns, and I'm sure that once they open, if everything comes around and they open, I'm sure that if there's any parking issues, they'll discuss it and resolve it with the landlord.
Yeah, and just to add on the parking, because that obviously is a concern for us, we want to make sure that there is parking. And we do have 3 reserved spots for patient parking per our lease. So they're going to be across the walkway there in front of our center. So they're going to be the closest spots across the driveway.
They'll be signed?
They'll be signed that say patient parking only.
Okay. Nick, you had...
Yes. I'm looking at A1.1, and I noticed there's a new lead-lined wall in the floor plan notes. I was curious, I wasn't able to find it, and where would that go?
So, to touch on lead lining, we get shielding reports from our physicist who dictates what needs to be lead lined and doesn't. It really, lead lining in our sake and in the state of Connecticut is over and above the requirement. We shield it with lead as a precaution, but we do testing on all of our equipment, and we monitor that to ensure that there is no exposure for our patients, our employees, and our neighbors. So it's purely as a precaution, but it is monitored to make sure that there is no exposure on any level. And we have, like I said, a professional testing company who comes in to test all of those things.
So will you actually have some walls that are lead-lined?
We will generally follow the shielding report that's generated by our physicist. So in other Connecticut sites, they come out, they do a report, and they dictate where the lead would be placed. Just speaking generally, because I don't have that shielding report yet, it would most likely be on the exterior wall adjoining, Smashburger or our other co-tenant there on the other side.
Okay.
Because I guess there are some comments by the fire department that, that you're supposed to meet some fire separations, not that you mentioned the common walls. And, the only thing I did notice is that your east wall, when it terminates at the front of the store, terminates against a glass panel. And if there's any rating required, I'm not sure how you would ever be able to rate a wall, to a glass panel and say, yeah, that's going to give me, protection from the fire sweeping it out because of the fact that if the glass breaks, the fire's already on the other side. So, and it might be a little minutia and might be a little more technical than we might want to get here, but, looking at what the fire department is going to be looking at, you might consider whether you have to change the window system at that point because like you said, if it has to be a fire, I don't even know if it has to be a fire-rated wall.
So we did get the comments from the fire marshal, and we spoke to him. He said that all these comments should be addressed on our submittal to the building department, but we will address his comments and ensure fire rating and everything because we don't know the tenant next to us. We don't know the fire rating requirement, but we will certainly address that because we've dealt with that in other scenarios where we come up against a storefront, and the ideal situation is to add a mullion or some sort of break there so that your storefront isn't just kind of evaporating into a wall. So we usually cap it and we'll put in a defined break.
Okay, just as long as you're aware of that. Like you said, I don't know if you need it or not, but it
could
be a real big problem if he comes in there and says, you don't meet the kind of rating that you need to meet, so that.
Yeah, we'll have all that detail on our plans, on our full set of plans.
You do have his full report then, because
I have a letter that was forwarded from Raquel that detailed all of his comments. So we have that, and our team actually reached out to him already to discuss all of his comments.
Lighting and so forth.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, everything. It's just that he, I guess, when he gets the full set of plans, he'll have all of that detail, and we'll address those comments.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, the reason why that we forward those plans to you is exactly what Commissioner Sweezak was saying, in that to the extent that because of the fire marshal's comments, you're going to have to modify any of your plans, we're trying to avoid you having to come back to this commission again. And if you're going to have to start enclosing exterior windows and things like that, you might have to come back. So our hope is when we submit those plans to, those comments to you, that you figure out with the fire marshal whether you're going to be able to accomplish that without having to alter the facade of the building.
Great.
Okay.
Because if you are altering the facade of the building, you will be coming back here.
Yep.
Any commissioners, any further? Have you, while I open it to the public, have you seen the conditions?
I've only seen the fire marshal conditions. I haven't
These are
seen the others.
conditions,
They're the standard conditions of the commission, and the only two items are that the concerns of the fire marshal must be addressed,
Here.
and there is no scale on the site plans, and so the final site plans would have to have a scale.
Do you have any problems with those?
Not at all.
Okay. Let me open it to the public if you vacate your seats. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against this application? Hearing none, Roger, any reason to keep it open? No, sir. Okay, then, let me get the right one. I'll close public hearing 2865.
Go, Mary.
So someone.
I'd like to put forth a motion to approve public hearing 2865, 54 Hazard Avenue, Go Health Urgent Care. Whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission has received a special use permit application, PH 2865, for a Go Health Urgent Care facility located at 54 Hazard Avenue, map 056, lot 0026, Business Regional Zone, and whereas a public hearing was held on July 20th, 2017, and whereas the proposed use and interior improvements are in general conformity with the infield zoning regulations, now therefore be resolved, the Infield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves public hearing 2865 for a Go Health Urgent Care facility located at 54 Hazard Avenue, map 056, lot 0026, Business Regional Zone, according to the below referenced plans and with the following 26 conditions of approval in a memo dated July 20th, 2017, prepared by the Planning Department.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Welcome to our town, and hope you're successful. It should be a great addition to our town and to that area. Thank you very much. Thank you. Public hearing 2867, petition for a zone change. The applicants are here, and get in, I like the presentations, they were good.
You want to tell us who you are?
Probably would be a good way to start. For the record, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Smith.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we got to
do
take
the
the
reading?
roll and read the legal notice. I jumped the gun.
Charles Duran.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
And Rich Suzak is here. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 20th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2867, petition for zoning text amendment to add a new subsection to section 10.30.5 of the Enfield zoning regulations to allow freestanding tenant identification signage in planned commercial developments. Kayop Enfield LP applicant.
Okay. Okay, for the record, my name is Chris Smith. I am a land use attorney and a partner at the law firm of Shipman and Goodwin, and I appear before you this evening again on behalf of Kayak Enfield LP, which is a Kimco Realty entity. And Kimco, as you're aware, is the owner of the Elm Plaza. With me this evening from Kimco Realty is Mr. Frank Keiko on my right. And we appear before you as the petitioner of the subject text amendment, which is, as indicated in the legal, is designed to address permitting freestanding tenant identification signage for certain planned commercial developments located in your business districts. And as you're aware, the Elm Plaza, when we appeared before you before, a couple of times at this point in time, is what we would consider to be a rear lot. And what I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, I know that you have quite a bit of paper and material I saw with the large packets you came in with tonight, but I do have a little packet to hand out just to add to that, so.
He saved you bringing it tonight.
I have that big litigation bag that
Thanks.
works wonders when you do it like this.
As we threw it on the table.
Okay, thank you. That's right.
And again, we have been before you before with regards to working with you in a pre-application format. Then you had a workshop that we attended. You were very kind to hear from us again during the workshop. We appreciate that. And your Director of Planning, Roger, has indicated to me and advised me that the Commission has come up with a draft signed text amendment to address signage. And it's my understanding that you plan to have a public hearing on that at the end of August. However, we would like to pursue the subject application while the Commission processes its draft signage regulation. There are some similarities and there are some differences, and we're hopeful that the Commission might see fit to possibly close this hearing, and we're more than willing to wait to see how your other text amendment goes, and if indeed that were to be approved, I suppose that we could very well be applying under that particular text amendment. However, because there's no guarantee that that will be adopted, we again would like to pursue this application with, again, some of the differences that I'll just walk you through very quickly, just to remind you of what those are. We have Exhibit 1 as a copy of the text amendment. Exhibit, well, just to refresh you on our particular plaza, the Elm Plaza, we have Exhibits 1, 2, and 3, and I would respectfully refer the Commission to Exhibit 2, and that's one that starts with the aerial overlay of the center, and after that we have provided you with just basically the tenants, and then after that you have what could be signage if this text amendment were to be adopted, and quite frankly, it could be a proposal under your proposed text amendment. There would just be a different criteria. Our text amendment provides for a Type B process, which is administrative over-the-counter, where I understand in reviewing your proposed text amendment, it's a Type C, which would involve a special permit application. And we understand, and that's to give you a little more discretion. And again, we understand that difference between the two applications. But just to remind you as to why we came up with our application, and we had larger properties. Your text amendment has smaller properties and smaller store requirements of 10,000 square feet. We're at 120 for, again, to handle the more larger developments. But ours in particular, we have this rather large site. I like to refer to it as a rear lot, essentially. And we have a number of properties with a number of stores right in front of us, in between what is essentially our shopping plaza and Elm Street. So we're essentially cut off from Elm Street, so to speak, and the building at its closest point for our shopping center is about 650 feet away from Elm Street, a little over 2 football fields. So you can picture if you're at the Meadowlands or up at Gillette, 2 of those, that's how far away we are. And you're very familiar with this shopping center, as I know. So one of the things that we were looking for initially was to provide for tenant identification pylons at the entrances or to this particular plaza. And that's what prompted us to appear before you in the pre-app format and then come back again when you were having your workshops. And I'll just respectfully refer the commission back to Exhibit 1 and then Exhibit 1A. The attachment is essentially our text, our draft amendment, and if you were to take your draft amendment and hold it up next to it, it's very similar, which is, we consider that, we're grateful for that, and again, look forward to working with the commission with regard to our particular site. And I would just point out a couple of differences. Again, our text tends to involve larger parcels, minimum of 2 acres. We had reduced it. We initially drafted something that was much larger, and Mr. O'Brien indicated that, no, if the commission is to adopt something, it wants to address number of other properties, and I see that you've reduced yours to 1 acre, which is fine with us. It certainly covers our shopping center as far as the minimum requirement. And then we had the frontage requirement and the 120,000 square feet of commercial building being on the property, and you've reduced that to 10,000 because, again, we understand you want to address multiple properties. With your special permit criteria, you have caps for the square footage and the height, but you can also, when you're reviewing an application on an application-by-application basis under your special permit, you can work within that cap of, 40 feet in height and the 240 square feet. Obviously, we hope, dealing with larger shopping centers in a rear lot situation as ours, hopefully will fall in at the higher end of those requirements. And again, what we drafted was actually a little less than that. And we did provide you, again, an Exhibit 2 with a sample of what could be installed at the plaza under our regulations, which, quite frankly, when you deal with the height and the size, fall within the parameters of yours. And again, as Exhibit 3 are just examples of 4 other centers in Kimco's portfolios here in Connecticut. We provided you with samples of the identification signage. But again, if we were to come back under your text, if you were to adopt yours with a specific special permit application, I presume that it would be, we'd show you what's in Exhibit 2, and that's what we've been showing you from day one. So on the one hand, we understand that you may very well be adopting yours, but that's subject to public hearing and hearing from citizens and whatnot. If that's the case, we would anticipate returning under that regulation. And if not, if we can keep this one in play, just in case, for whatever reason, that one doesn't get adopted, at least you'll have this one to review and possibly act upon in your discretion, and we would have certainly plenty of time to do that. I know I spoke with Roger about the timeframes. If you were to close the hearing, obviously you have 65 days, and I think we have almost another 65 days, 50 days of extension. So that should take us through your review process of your proposed regulation.
Now, where does the signage for you would start? Because Kohl's is out front, and you said that's a separate sign.
No, we would be replacing that sign, and we had drafted ours where if there was an existing, it could be replaced. So we would replace the existing, it's not the most appealing sign, I think everybody would admit, sign that's out there, and would replace it with what's shown in Exhibit 2 on that third page in Exhibit 2,
Okay.
which would be that. So, Mr. Chairman, if you go to Exhibit 2,
I thought they,
you're spot on. It shows you the Kohl's.
right.
Not the most attractive, and then we would come back presumably with something along the lines of what's there.
On your verbiage, on
Yes, sir.
Section A, and 1, 2, third line down, it says if there are 2 or more entrances to the planned commercial development. Now, I got to thinking the other night, and that's the same verbiage as in ours. But, for example, there are some that have entrances on other streets. I'm thinking of the Hazard Avenue has an entrance on Freshwater and Plum and Phoenix. And so they'd have to be separate signs, so that would have really 4 entrances.
Well, you don't necessarily have to have the larger signs on every single entrance. You could have
No,
them.
but this says if there are 2 or more entrances, a
Like-
second freestanding tenant identification sign may be permitted. So this means they wouldn't be able to have signs on those other 2.
Okay, where are you?
Yeah, I guess it actually says that not more than 2 freestanding identification signs shall be permitted for any one,
Right.
planned
Yeah.
development. So basically, you can have 5 entrances, but you're only going to get 2 signs.
Right. And I don't know if that's what you want, because you have a lot of people coming down, let's say, down Freshwater.
The owner of whatever
Or the other.
plaza that would have like 5 would make that decision and present it to us. We wouldn't make the decision.
What?
In other words, they get 2, if
You're
everything
right,
passes, they
right.
get
So
2.
you want, well, that's why I wanted to make sure you wanted to limit to 2.
Yes.
Or would you let them have signs there pertaining
No.
just as an entrance sign or
No,
something? I don't know.
I think we're going forward, but we want to go forward in a regulated way. In other words, you don't want to just open the door and just say, have
No, but-
have 9 signs all over
In
the
this,
place.
that particular one I'm referring to would keep a lot of people off of Hazard Avenue.
Well, I think that we should start with no more than 2 and then revisit it if it's an issue.
But
That's just my.
I think if I could, you guys are getting into discussion of the merits of any one particular thing.
Right, well, no, I know.
But
I would submit, Mr. Chairman, that I would submit that the main road would be the desirable one to have the
Oh,
signs on
true.
it.
Oh, yeah.
As most people coming in from side streets already know where things are.
All right, well, no, when I read it, I just.
As I understand it, this
traffic really is
this regulation, and Chris could correct it, but the proposal from the applicant says you can only have 2.
Yeah. that's
And
all right.
the one that is out the public hearing of the commission leaves open the question for the commission to decide based upon the size of the plaza, the streetscape, and the traffic conditions.
Yep, okay. Just
we were looking for.
thought I'd raise it.
That's really all we want, right?
Questions from the commission?
And just, I'm sorry.
My only concern, this is very well written, and I've come to some of your chats, for
I copied
zoning
yours.
and planning, but what I was going to say is, I wouldn't be comfortable with a type B. I would only be comfortable with a type C, just so you could regulate it. I'm sure that you would do a lovely job, but, it sets a precedent. And once we go to the public hearing, if we have a type B for one thing and a type C for another, you might have an issue. But that's just me.
Again, I think, in terms of you're having a public hearing and you're soliciting input, and then
No,
afterwards you can have your deliberation once you have a motion on the floor.
No, but we're going to close this tonight, if all goes well.
Yeah.
And my challenge is, as he put it, if the other one doesn't happen, which we aren't considering,
Right.
this is a type B, and he can come back and get a type B because we've already closed
Right.
it.
But all I'm cautioning you is that you have this application before you, and you're trying to make sure you know what this application purports to do or will do, and then you have another one that you will have a public hearing on August 24th, and so I'm suggesting that you may want to reserve your discussion until after you've had the full public hearings on both regulations, so as not to prejudge any application.
Okay, but my concern is, once we close this, that's what we vote on, correct? You can't change what you've closed tonight?
No, the public hearing, I mean, if you want to say to the applicant, would you object if we
That's
struck
what I'm- that's where
something?
I'm
And you can have that discussion, but
That's where I'm going.
that would suggest that that's the correct way to go about it.
Well, sometimes we've done that, and that's what we were,
Chris Smith, for the record, we would have no objection if you wanted to just leave the hearing open until, with extensions, until after your hearing on August 24th on yours. And just for the record, and I know, you know, Roger knows this, and I'm sure that you do as well, that if you wanted to, let's say your regulation didn't get adopted for whatever reason, or you adopted it and you limited it so it didn't apply to us, you could always modify and approve a text amendment, just as you can other applications. And by making it a type C, for example, you would make it more restrictive. So that would be within the framework of the legal notice for this, because this is obviously less restrictive being a type B. So for example, in September, you said no, you closed your hearing on yours for whatever reason, and you didn't adopt it, then you could say, okay, now we're going to deal with the Kimco one. Do you folks have any further comments? And if we say no, then you may close the hearing. And as Roger indicated, in deliberations, you could always say, you know what, it's not bad, a couple of things in here, let's change this. And one of them could be, we don't like the type B, let's make it a type C. And you could rule on that, because again, it would be more restrictive. If we asked for a C and you made it a B, then I respectfully would submit you'd have to renotice everything and start over again. But by making it a C, you would be within the realm of that. And so maybe just leaving it open.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, that hear the testimony tonight, ask whatever questions you want, and then continue the public hearing.
Thank you, that addresses my concerns.
more questions?
Bless you.
Okay, let me get the.
Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you. We were trying to
let me
keep
get
it
the
short.
public in. You may wanna-
We understand.
Anyone in the
Okay, thank
public
you.
would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application.
Now, just one housekeeping detail is that once you open the public hearing, as Chris knows, you got 35 days to complete it. You won't be meeting in 35 days, so you're going to have to give us an extension to keep the public hearing open.
Chris Smith on behalf of the applicant petitioner, and we will grant the extension through first meeting in September.
Very good.
Which, whatever date that is, but, and I can confirm that with Raquel or Roger tomorrow and get a letter into that effect. Thank you.
We have a form before you leave the building.
Even better.
You got that for him so we can sign?
Is it there? Okay.
He comes prepared.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have to make a motion for the extension, to accept the extension ahead of time?
Yep. Well, the first motion is to keep it open.
That date is September 7th.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Chair will entertain a motion to keep it open.
I'd like to make a motion to keep open public hearing 2867.
Definite date? Date definite.
And then,
First.
okay, first we'll accept the extension for public hearing 2867. Motion.
Motion's made to extend to the
September
7th.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, it's 7-0 to keep it open. Or accept, I'm sorry, to accept the extension.
Now I'd like to make a motion to keep open public hearing 2867 through September 7th.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any abstentions? Any negative? Okay. 7-0-0. And so we're extended. Thank you very much. I'd like
Very much.
the-
Maybe I'll see you at the end of August. Thank you. Hopefully your packets won't be as voluminous.
Oh, gosh, let's hope not.
But we keep hoping.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're getting down there, ladies and gentlemen.
We're getting there, it's 20 minutes.
2875. 151 King Street. And Secretary, read the legal notice and take the attendance.
The Enfield Planning.
The applicant can get himself ready up there.
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 20th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2875, 1551 King Street, application for a change of use to convert building to a place of worship, New Day Church applicant, map 17, lot 28, Business General Zone, BG, King Street Design Overlay District, dated this 7th day of July 2017. Charles Duran, Chairman. Information is available at the Enfield Planning Office, Enfield Town Hall, and that occurred in the Journal Inquirer on July 8th and July 17th of 2017. Charles Duran.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Rich Suzak. Here.
Okay, welcome, gentlemen. And
you.
presentation, I guess.
Well, thank you very much for having us here, and thanks for recognizing me a couple weeks ago when I was the last guy sitting in the room. I appreciate that. For the record, I didn't bring you any papers, but these guys with me did, okay? So I don't want you mad at me, but sorry to throw you under the bus there, John, while you're handing those out. But thank you for having us. My name is Andrew Charco. I'm the executive pastor at New Day Church. I'm also one of the founders of the church back in 2008 when we started with 8 people, my wife and I, and 3 other couples. And New Day has grown since then, and we hold 3 services now at the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, and we're excited to be a part of that, and we've always been a portable church. And so we set up and we tear down every single week. And we love doing it, but we also love the thought of having a building of our own in which to do ministry and to hopefully be a great blessing to the community that we find ourselves in. We have scoured the earth in this local area, we will tell you that. We know where our population comes from. And because we're at the Hall of Fame, we're pretty regional in our appeal. So we draw from many people from Enfield and in this community that attend and call New Day Church their home church, which we're thankful for. Other people in Connecticut and then the surrounding Springfield area as well. And so we've looked in all those areas and we found this site, 1551 King Street, to be a wonderful site and we believe can be a wonderful place of worship for us. So we're here on behalf of our church to try to get a change in use for that zone so that it can be considered a place of worship and change from its current usage. We have John Furman here from VHB, who has been on our team and he's done a wonderful job. And Tom Small from Space Design to my right. And they've just helped us. They're part of our team to make this happen. We're not great at buildings and zones and engineering. That's not my expertise. I have some, not many, but none of those are my expertise. I guarantee you that. I just also want to thank Roger and his staff. They've been super helpful to us, and they helped us get to an ART meeting where we got a lot of great feedback and just walked us through that process. So we believe that our team has done the best that we know how to do to answer some of those things, and we're excited here to present that to you, and then obviously hear any questions or feedback that you might have for us so we can bring any kind of clarity that's necessary.
The only comment, most of them have no comments. You know, the water pollution, the only one they had was they wanted to provide the equipment list of what will be in the kitchen and the main function of the kitchen.
Yes.
I guess you're aware of that.
Yes, we are aware of that.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that at the ART, we kind of were wondering if these guys were ever coming back because they came in with the notion of what they could do, and every department kept giving them a list, and they went away with a long list, and I'm like, oh wow, and I have to say that. I was pleasantly surprised when they tackled every single one of them.
Thank you, Roger. And if you were wondering if you scared us, you did. So that's just for the record. Was I scared when I left? Yes, is the answer.
But I mean, it was a great process because everybody told them what they needed to do. They went away and they did it, and they're here with, I think, an application that we can enthusiastically endorse.
Thank you, Roger.
Okay, good evening. Song?
This one works right here.
Oh,
Oh, I guess I have to speak into it. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Furman. I'm the managing director for VHB in Springfield, and I'm the civil engineer of record for this project. So Andrew and Roger actually provided a great summary of the process that we've done to date, and we have done a lot of work on the site. Through the ART meeting, there were a number of hot items from the site perspective that we addressed, and I'll give you a brief overview of the site, what some of those changes were. You should see in your packet a blue book that has a stormwater management, and I'll go through the aspects of that. There was a memo that we put together regarding traffic, the existing use that was there, the proposed use, and I can go through that as well. And then Tom Small, who is the architect from Small Architects, was actually going to talk about the building exterior. And the information that I just passed out to you was information that he put together, basically addressing some of the comments we got from the ART meeting, as well as included information regarding the exterior. So for those of you that hope, is this all right, this angle, so you can see it? Yeah. Black and white kind of gets washed out sometimes, but this is an actual copy of the survey, and I see that a lot of you have the plans with you. So we did this survey. This is actually the second time we've been involved with this project. The first one, Secure Energy, who is the current owner, made an application here and wanted to convert this over to office space. And through whatever reason he did not proceed with that, that's when New Day Church came in, and this has been a great use. So, so we had already performed the survey for it. The building is existing. We're not really planning any modifications to the building other than exterior improvements, which Thomas will go over. Some of the comments we got from the ART meeting were focused around parking, landscaping, stormwater management, and ADA access. So I'll go through those quickly. So I'm going to turn to our sheet C3, which I think is a good starting point. So the site right now, what was very unique about this site, was actually a pleasure to work on. Normally when we have a client come in and they're saying, you know, we need parking, we don't have room for parking. This site was laid out so inefficiently as far as the existing parking lot. We had 50-foot drive aisles. So we had pavement, excess pavement to work with, and that's what made this project easy. So what we are ending up doing is in this corner of the building here is where the main entrance is going to be. But if you walked out on the site today, you'd see parking is just everywhere. So what we ended up doing is taking parking from areas that we really didn't need it, which is along the back here and along the back here, and we moved it up to the front. And we had a meeting with Jennifer and the building inspector, and the direction that we got, that was prior to the ART meeting, and the direction we got was that if we pull out landscaping, we have to find it somewhere else on the site. And so when we started that exercise, we ended up taking away part of the front lawn, which I see some of you had the demolition plan. You can see where we were taking landscaping out and then replacing it with pavement. Through the course of making this an efficient parking layout, we actually are decreasing the amount of impervious surface on this site. So there's less pavement there after this development will be, after it's built, than there is there today. But in addition to that, there are 94 spaces there right now, and we're proposing 192. So we are almost doubling the amount of spaces and reducing the amount of impervious. And that is in addition to adding landscaping in accordance with the landscaping ordinance. So that just shows you how inefficient this existing parking lot was. It was terrible. While we were doing that, we were able to go through the zoning ordinance, and we were able to correct a few things that were encroachments, I guess, if you would. So I believe, Roger, it's a 35-foot parking setback from a residential district, and the existing parking area was in that. So we basically pulled the parking area out, got rid of that encroachment, brought the site into compliance. One of the other items that you'll see here is up near the driveway. This site had no connection to the public sidewalk in front. So if you were wanting to go to NAMCO or the building that was there, or the use that was there prior, you had to actually walk down the driveway, and that's like a 7 to 8% driveway. So one of the comments that we got from the ART meeting was that we needed to provide an accessible connection to the sidewalk. So if you look at this corner of the plan, this is quite the sidewalk. It's an S-turn. And what we did is that we could have done this a number of ways, but we tried to strike a balance that reduced the amount of earthwork that we had to do. So we kind of come in, and under the ADA regulations, you're allowed a 5% slope without any railings. So we come in at 5%, and then the turns on either end are actually ramps. They're concrete, and they're going to have railings on it. And then those areas are allowed to slope up to 8.3%, 1 inch per foot. So you come in at 5, 8.3, long run, 8.5, 8.3, and then 5 all the way down. And we were able to reduce the length of the run of the sidewalk by doing that, and gave a combination of areas where we could create resting spots for anybody wanting to use that. The site is actually always additionally unique. I'm going to go to C4. And these big dotted lines running through here is the existing stormwater collection system. It actually takes roadway water from Route 5. It's a state-owned system. Brings it through the site. These pipes are huge. They're 24 or 36-inch diameter pipes. And if you walked out there today, you're going to see stuff growing out of them. They have not been maintained. The pavement is caved in around it. So one of the comments we got from the engineering department is those have to be fixed. And we agree, because we can't put in a new parking lot and have people losing their cars in sinkholes. So what we're going to do is we're pulling them out.
They don't tend to come back after that.
It's asking a lot.
We want them to come back to our church.
They're going in the wrong direction from your business.
That's right. We're going this way, Roger. You got it. You got it. You got it.
We're going to go through. We're going to pull the tops off. We're going to fix the structure underneath, put a brand new top on it, and then we're going to set them to new grades so all the parking lot is safe. One other thing we noticed out there, there's an existing sidewalk around King Street, and you get to a point in it, and the sidewalk takes like a 1.5-foot dip between panels, and then you kind of have to jump over and come back up. Well, this pipe system seems to have a break in it. So it's collecting a lot of sediment, basically creating a sinkhole up near the street, and that's caused the sidewalk to collapse. So the state's solution to that was to put up a piece of fence along it so that if you tripped, you wouldn't roll down the embankment. So we're going to take the fence out. We're going to pull the sidewalk out. Yes, that's it. We're going to find what's causing that sinkhole, and we're going to replace those 2 panels. So that sidewalk will now be solid all the way through the front of the property. You will notice that we have a number of landscaping islands that we've introduced in there. So this right now is a sea of parking. It's a sea of pavement. It just has no character at all. So we have teamed, VHB has teamed with the landscape architect out of Lenox, Massachusetts, Greylock Design Associates. They're a great urbanistic type landscaper. They try to design landscaping without the use of irrigation. Sometimes we need to have it, but they're ones to try and save our resources. So in the packet is a landscaping plan that they've looked at, and that is, let's see what sheet that is. It's L101. So we are adding a number of trees in these planters. We are including ground cover. If you walked out there today, one of the bad features of it is that we do have some fairly mature trees that are on the site, and those will have to come down. I am not convinced that those aren't what is causing the problem with the existing drainage system, because some of them are very close to that drainage line. I'm thinking that we're going to find that those roots are infiltrating the joints and causing these problems. But the trees that we're putting back will more than supplement those. And now when you look down there, you kind of see a big parking lot. And when you look down there afterwards, you're going to see a smaller parking lot, and you're going to see all these wonderful trees planted around. So that's really kind of the big ticket items for the site plan. We did do a traffic memorandum, and our traffic engineer, Juliet Locke, has appeared before you here, and so unfortunately she couldn't attend today. And again, we're in a very unique situation where we're coming in with a use that under the ITE guidelines, Institute for Transportation Engineers, proposes to use less or generate less traffic than the use that's already there. So in the memo, you'll see that as a retail store with a warehousing component, there were approximately 600 trips per day that were generated by the former use under ITE when it was in play. The church generates a fraction of that. It's a reduction of about 420 trips. So it basically has a big reduction. The other benefit to that is that the church's services are on Sunday. And those are traditionally the days that the peak traffic that is already on the road is not there. So the peak traffic generation that we have complements when the peak traffic from the roadway is not there. And there is no impacts at all. We're not proposing to change the driveway. That center island is going to stay. So if you come down King Street, you'll have to take a right in. You come up the driveway, you have to take a right out. So we are proposing to completely redo the parking area, pulling it all up, new gravel. If we can, we're going to do some testing on it as we get into construction. If we can reclaim it, kind of grind it up and use that material to improve the base that's already there, it's less expensive to do that than to just dig out, have all these trucks on the road and bring in brand new gravel. So we'll do that, we'll test it. We will write a specification that the contractor can then bring in smaller rocks or fines, supplement the material that's already there, grade it, compact it, and then put brand new asphalt on it. So in general, that is the site plan. I don't believe there's anything that I've overlooked, but if you don't have any pressing site plan questions now, I'd like to invite Thomas up to walk through some of the building stuff.
Any questions for?
And there are full-size building elevations and floor plans in this set, so we can refer to those in addition to the ones that we just passed out.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Good evening to everyone. Thomas Small with Space. We are an architectural design firm headquartered in Oklahoma, which explains my strange accent. Please indulge me in that. But we do, churches are our specialty. We do this all over the country, and we're very happy and pleased to be assisting New Day in this particular project. We do both ground-up facilities as well as renovations of existing facilities for the purposes of churches. So this is not unique to us. We've seen this type of project many times before. This building seems to be perfectly suited for New Day's use as a church facility in terms of its configuration. Obviously, there will be interior renovations to customize the various spaces for their use. We are not proposing any additions to this building at this time. It's the outside walls will stay where they are, so we are not enlarging the footprint of the building. We will be restyling the building, however, in an attempt to try to closer match the building to your design ordinances for King Street in this particular area. And that is one of the reasons we passed out this 8.5 by 11 pass out. The first couple of pages is basically correlates with your design ordinance for the King District Overlay District. And what we wanted to show in that is what our intention was in restyling the outside of the building to try to align this particular building as close to that overlay district as possible. If you're familiar with the building itself as it exists, there are some photographs in your package which you're more than welcome to refer to. It's somewhat, I would call it a modern style building. It's mostly glass on the front, being for display purposes. A fairly flat parapet around the outside. The back side of the building is actually what they call CMU block, or concrete masonry unit blocks. Our proposal to align the building with your design ordinance would be to bring in materials that are consistent with New England style architecture, which includes lap siding, shingles, these sorts of things. And we're also suggesting, and you'll see in the elevations, which I believe is this sheet, you'll recognize in your package, and I apologize, those 8.5 by 11s are fairly small. But we have these design elements that we're adding to the entrances, which are gabled structures, in order to bring that element of New England architecture to the building. There's not a whole lot more we can do to a rectangular box with a flat parapet besides this. So we believe we're going a long ways to try to bring this building and be a good neighbor to the historical structures that are in the neighborhood around. The areas at the back side of the building that are concrete masonry, which you really don't see from the street very much, that would be painted so it correlates with the colors that we're using towards the front. I did bring a couple of samples of the siding if you wanted to see those this evening. It's called a hardy plank, if you've ever heard of that material. It looks like wood siding. It's actually cementitious siding, which means it'll last 20-plus years, and it actually has a 20-year paint warranty to it. And it's an excellent material used often on New England-style architecture. We use it virtually throughout the United States nowadays because it's proven itself to be a very good, durable material. They also have a type of siding that is also in the shingle motif, so you actually see the shingles, and we're proposing to use that towards the top parapet of the front of the building to bring a little bit of that particular type of style into the front elevation of the building as well. So those are the main features of the exterior. We are reducing the glass areas somewhat on the front to try to draw the building away from the retail contemporary display and make it more church-like, if you will. And so I think that will be an improvement also, at least from the view from King Street itself. Would certainly entertain any questions you might have or comments.
Is the
I'm
front, the entrance going to be where the old entrance was?
Yes, yes, it will. Actually, we're maintaining the entrance over on I guess it would be the west side of the building, which is kind of that alleyway on the back side, but we don't anticipate that being a main entrance. The main entrance will certainly be here, and then there's a smaller entrance here at the back, because this is where the children's department will be located. It would be back in this area. So the crowd actually kind of splits a little bit, depending if you have a family to deliver or not.
Just out of curiosity, what does SPARK stand for?
We were wondering.
You want to answer that one? No, that's for me, that question. Yeah, Spark is for our tween ministry, we call it, which is really 10 years old to about 13 years old. So it's just a name that we gave them. And they are kind of, Spark-like at times, 10 to 13-year-olds. So we think it's a good one. Our teen ministry is Ignite. So, we've got some passion with some of the kids in that age group. So that refers to that age group. So when you see that, I think you're referring to one of the rooms. And that's from our family ministries pastor has recommended that room to be for those 10 to 13-year-olds. Welcome.
In terms of capacity, too, and I didn't mention that before, the auditorium is presently sized for about 400 seats, and that would be the intended size of the auditorium in this case. Yes.
Could you just run through the floor plans for the...
Certainly. Happy to. Now, obviously, these are conceptual plans. We have not entered to full development of the architectural engineering drawings. That would involve a thorough code review, building code review at that time, and we would coordinate very closely to your plan review department during the design process. So we understand that still needs to happen. But functionally, the main entrance that you were referring to right here, this would be the main lobby. Most of the churches that we design and what New Day is wanting as well involves a large lobby area. And the reason being is that often churches have more than one service, to where there's an overlap of 20 or 30 minutes between services. So you have to be sensitive about crowds coming in and out and overlapping. And therefore, most new churches nowadays have fairly large lobbies to allow for that traffic within the building to pass without creating a big log jam right there at the front door or even into the auditorium. So that's the reason for the larger lobby. Again, the main auditorium would be located here. There are functional areas along this side, including the main toilet bank, what we call a hospitality kitchen, and that addresses one of the questions that your folks had before. A hospitality kitchen that we provide in churches is not a full-service kitchen. It's more of a coffee service type kitchen. It's even one step lower, I would call it, than a warming kitchen. There's no hood required, there's no cooktop, there's no food prep that goes on. At the very most, there would be some microwaves in there for staff to heat their meals up with, that sort of thing. So it is kitchen's a little bit of an anomaly in terms of a term. It's really more of a service area. And there would be 2 large coffee pots in that room, industrial size, like you might find at Starbucks. And that's the way the coffee would be brewed and then carted throughout the building on movable carts to serve to various areas within the building during service times. As you work your way back through this hallway, this whole wing at the back side would be the children's department, including Spark. And so they would be contained back here. There are presently let me correct myself. There's 3 stairwells that serve a mezzanine area on the 2nd floor. One of those would be removed because it's not needed functionally, and the other 2 would serve a smaller area upstairs for church offices. And by building code, we have to keep that at less than 3,000 square feet on that 2nd floor area, and we're fully aware of that. But we would be following the requirements, obviously, for building codes with respect to how that is designed and the type of functions we can put up there on that 2nd floor. This would be fully sprinkled. It has to be to meet building code for this particular use, and we're aware of that as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that, because put that on the record, because in original drawing you had some programs up there, and I think both the fire marshal and the building official said you would have to put an elevator in to service that, and so
This would be-
I see you've chosen to just make it church offices instead.
Correct.
So
The area where you have the 400 seats, is that flat, or will that be sloped?
It's flat floor, right, and it's flat floor presently, and will remain flat floor.
Thank you.
Right. And they would be movable seats in that they can be unlatched. This is the type of seat that's used most often in churches nowadays, especially on flat floors, where they interlock. But if you wanted to move or rearrange the seats, it gives you the opportunity that you could set them up in a different configuration. But they are interlocking.
Thank you.
Good use. Good use for the building.
Just a quick question, in terms of your platform is going to be elevated.
Yes.
Okay, is there any kind of a handicap access to that elevated
Yes,
platform?
it's required. We have to, by code, we have to provide access to that platform that's accessible from the audience area. So if you look on your plan, back here at the, I guess, north end of the platform, you see a little rectangle with what looks like 2 doors on it. That is a handicap lift right next to the stair. And so that would provide handicap access to the platform. And that is a permanent element that would be installed there. This fully meets, we do these in every church that we do. It fully meets. You either have to provide this or a ramp, one or the other. Yeah.
proposed conditions of approval, so starting 7 through 11.
Just as another question, in terms of, are you going to have any large screens for visual, effects, or, and maybe some audio, loudspeakers or whatever, and are they going to be maybe louder than we'd all like them to be, or maybe more vibrant than we'd all like to see them in terms of it's that commercial where you see all the lights going on inside the house and everybody says, "Ooh, it's spooked." This type of
That
thing.
probably depends on who you ask. No, the audio system has not been designed at this point. We call it AVL, audio-visual lighting. Those systems have not been designed yet. They won't be designed until the full architectural engineering is done at a later time. Typically, this church and most churches that we do have a fairly significant audio-visual system, which includes a couple of very large screens that are flanking the side walls on either side of the stage, and also a fairly good audio system because typically it's not choirs anymore. It's a full performance band. So the short answer is yes, there will be music pumping through it. We have an advantage on this building in that it's concrete masonry unit construction, which has mass to it, and that helps a lot to dampen the sound that will be coming out of that room. There's also other things that we often do in our designs to further dampen that sound in terms of putting acoustical bats and sound panels on the wall of the auditorium. A lot of that we have to do anyway in order to control the acoustics in the room itself, but it also assists in terms of any sound leaving. The biggest challenge on most churches in the sound is the low frequency, the bass, and that can be controlled by the AVL designer by doing certain types of designs that limit the amount of vibration that actually leave the building. And the AVL designer will be carefully considering those issues when he does his design eventually on this particular project.
Just as one last question, in terms of, right now, there are no interior columns in your auditorium? And is that a free span space?
It is presently,
All right,
yes,
all right.
yes, certainly.
Yeah, it just seems like a large space.
That's one of the luxuries of this particular building, is it had a space that had that open area. So it really suits their use very well.
Parking size and ceiling heights are the most difficult thing to find. And that's what this building offered, which was very, very helpful.
Yeah, that building is down, too. and
Correct.
The road, and the houses are up here, and the building is down here.
But there's also that
That
hotel.
wonderful driveway.
Yeah, but there's the hotel that's the proximity to that, so the vibrations.
There won't be any problem.
I was curious about the acoustics in here. A lot of churches, you go in, you're more than 10 rows back, you can't hear what the damn saying up there.
That's true.
Are you working on anything to improve it?
Oh, certainly. There'll be a lot, there's a couple of things going on that. One, we're required by code to provide audiovisual assistant devices to meet ADA. That's one of the things in auditoriums that we have to address anymore. So there are assisting devices that you can check out, or the church has to make available to people who request them. That's a requirement. Other than that, the AVL system, as I was saying a minute ago, is going to be very, very good. And in the way that the room is designed acoustically will also further improve the acoustics of that space. So by the time it's all done, it will be it's not going to be what I would call concert hall quality. It's not to that level, but it would be something similar. If I'm drawing something similar, something that you would find maybe in a high school auditorium or something of that manner. That's probably what you would expect. It's not so good, except for that one.
I'm dying.
Noise ordinances.
Yeah.
As long as you meet the noise ordinances.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Outside speakers is correct?
I'm sorry?
No outside speakers?
Well, again, that's something that we want to comply with your ordinance, so if that's something that you want to limit, then we would certainly entertain. Okay, very good, very good.
We don't want to entertain the neighborhood, just the building itself.
Not right now, we don't.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Charlie, your mic, you're not on. Oh, now you're on.
Control room is saying they can't hear you on the.
We're taking care of you.
They come down the hall and they wave at me, so.
Because I have a couple of site questions, okay? One of them is that, I guess, previously they had, a smaller volume of parked cars there during the use of the facility. And, you've doubled that, which always leads to the potential that, the more volume you have, the greater the possibilities there's somebody, has an oil leak in an oil pan or things like that. And you're sort of utilizing and reconfiguring some of the catch basins and storm, collection areas. And I was wondering, would it be prudent to add, maybe something that would, help separate in like a Vortexnics unit or, some kind of other, system that might enhance the quality of the water that's leaving the site, recognizing that the fact that you're going to have a lot more cars there and potentially, some, thing could sort of contaminate.
Collection hood there in the first.
Yeah, or actually, as you leave, I would always think that it'd be maybe the last one that you did.
I can definitely address that, and that's a great question. The problem with adding a Vortechnics unit on the existing system is that it does receive water, a tremendous amount of water from King Street. And the way a Vortechnic unit works, and where it's most efficient, is when the water kind of trickles through, and it has a chance to keep that floatable product behind, and it allows sediments to drop off. That's not what this system does. This system flushes with every event. We add very little water to the amount of volume coming through these pipes because the majority of it comes from the state. But what we tried to do was we added features to the system that will actually address some of that. Because of the way that the manholes are being used as junction points for the piping, and now they're located at the edge of the pavement. So let's just say the edge of the pavement is my hand right here, and there's a catch basin in this corner. Well, under the new design, our edge of pavement is over here, and I can't get to it. So what we've done is we've created a new catch basin, you call it a gutter inlet, at the edge of the pavement. And then we've connected it with a smaller pipe to the bigger one, and then we put a solid cover on the existing one. So those gutter inlets, and I think there's 3 of them, it might be 4, on the site. Those actually can provide some floatable product protection. The pipes are smaller. They don't receive the volume that the big 42-inch pipes receive. And by adding a hood to them, any fuel that happens to get in there basically stays in it. The hood on the outlet keeps the product in the unit instead of transmitting it downstream.
It empties down onto next to 91, doesn't it?
It does. It goes way down, and we traced out the area of Route 5 that it collects, and going. I think I'm turning around in my direction. I think it's north as far as our plan goes. We're kind of at a point where that road just kind of flows further. But we're taking a tremendous amount of water coming in from the other direction. So it collects it, and then it hits the manhole in front of our site and does a 90-degree turn. And that's why we think we're getting that erosion up by the sidewalk, because that water is just flowing around, and it's
down from across the street, even from
yes,
the property.
yeah. It's a tremendous. I was out there during a rain event, and a lot of times when we see pipes like that size, it's usually engineers. They're saying, if the 12 inch is good, 48 inches is better. And we walked in there, and you can see the pipes, and they were flowing full. There's a tremendous amount of water coming in from the roadway. So a Vortechnic, unfortunately, just won't work because of the volume that's coming down from off-site.
Again, I just wanted to make sure that you try to do whatever you can to limit, the amount of contaminants that might be going through that.
We did.
Because the other thing is in terms of building lighting and I guess parking lighting, in terms of, maybe I missed it, but is there something on our plans that show where all that is, or?
There should be a lighting plan in the set.
Oh.
Yes, so
At the very end.
so the NASCAR lights that are there now, they're coming out, and they're available for anyone who wants them. We can deliver them to your house if you want to set them up in
You're
your
not
backyard.
supposed to offer them anything of
sorry.
value.
Sorry.
So you have to declare that it has no value? Very good.
Yeah. Those things are unbelievable. That is a typical 1950s light. It's crazy. So what we are using, we tried to select a light fixture that would complement the architecture of the building. They are all going to be an LED type of light fixture. The poles are going to be an 18-foot high pole, which I think is specified on our plans. And what we're doing is the fixture itself is kind of a modular fixture. It has a very I guess industrial-looking arm and a very small head that's all aimed down. So I think if you went out there now on the site, I think we probably have 5 or 6 fixtures because they're just so tall and they're basically standing upright. They're lighting up the area. I believe the number we're putting in here is 15 or 16, because we have to put more lights in because we're not getting the spread that we were getting. But that is definitely in there.
Yeah, well, I see for the parking, but do you have anything how are you going to light the building itself?
Either on the, like looking up at the building?
Yeah, is the building just going to be a dark?
Well, that's an architectural question, so you got to go down to that end of the table.
At this time, we didn't have any specific lighting plans for the building that I can tell you. However, most of the projects that we do, most of the church projects, we do provide facade lighting, but it is very similar to what John was describing. It would be with LEDs, and it would have zero spill, all kept within the site. We would like to see a sign on the front of the building. Obviously, it would be in full compliance with your sign ordinance. We had not planned on doing an internally lit sign. What we were thinking is that it would be a standoff sign with possibly halo lighting off the back side of it, but not internally lit. And probably also include a light on the front that would just light the face of the sign. But that would be the limits of building lighting.
Did the executive pastor require the halo lighting?
I threw that in, actually. Yeah.
You just knew what I liked.
Yeah.
But basically, you would sort of review it with our planning department before it all got
Absolutely.
approved?
Absolutely.
What's this?
Yep.
Another one, just in case.
My stomach won't take
And I might add, too, typically what we prefer to do on building lighting is not to put the lights on the building itself, because we find that creates problems with neighbors, and that, we don't want to shine into the property line. And so often we'll do ground lights, ground wells that shine up to the face of the building from the ground below, which is a much better way to approach it.
Thank you for doing the LED lights. I was hoping that all the renovations, you would be doing something to, lessen the footprint. So thank you.
That's right. The water flow off the street, are you worried about flooding those lights you're going to put in the ground?
I think right now, when you go out there, we have less pavement after construction than we do before, so we're generating less water, and there aren't any really improvements being proposed in the street that's going to generate more from that aspect.
No, I don't mean more, just the amount that you had, the
Yeah,
volume that's there now.
the system actually is very efficient. It conveys it very well. I wouldn't want to get trapped in a pipe if it was during a big storm, because it just flies through. But we just have to seal the leaks, I guess you would. The leaks are what's causing the distress in the pavement.
Right.
Yeah, but no, we didn't see any signs of surcharging. Over the last 2-3 weeks, we've had some tremendous rain events come through. And at one time, I just happened to be on site when I was going in, and I saw no surcharging. I saw no water coming out of those basins flooding the parking lot. So it's sized accurately, and we're helping by generating less.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, we did provide you with a draft regulation. I've added 3 items based upon the commission's discussion here tonight. Originally, there were 29. I did provide the applicant a few minutes ago with the site-specific ones. The site-specific ones would be that the final submitted plans be signed and sealed, that the preliminary and not for construction label be removed from final plans. No public programs take place upstairs. The permit must be obtained from the health department for the use of the kitchen. A list of all equipment, description of the kitchen's main function must be provided to address the issues of the Water Pollution Control Authority. Then I added an 11A, which is no outdoor speakers, and 11B, that the applicant will submit a maintenance plan for the parking lot and the stormwater. which you have required in the past. How often is the parking
Yeah.
lot going to be swept, and so forth. And then the final one, that the applicant will submit a lighting plan for the building. So there would be 8, 9, 10, 11A, 11B, 11C, and 11D.
One modification we might ask is on item number 10, a permit must be obtained by the health department for use of the kitchen. As I explained, it's really a coffee brewing type of facility. It's not a
Well, what you
full-fledged
do,
kitchen.
you'd have to let them know when they check it out. Someday you might want to expand that if you have suppers or gatherings or something like that, and that's.
Or a soup kitchen.
Or a soup kitchen, depending on what you're going to do.
Yeah, you're going to have to anyhow, and what we try to do at this commission when we put that condition in there is it gives you a heads up that you got to go see them.
Would they issue a permit even if it did not require a permit? Would
Well,
they
if
just review it?
if they determine you don't need a permit, they'll notify us of that.
Okay. Should we word it that review must be obtained from the health department for use of the kitchen instead of permit, or are you comfortable with the
Doesn't make
permit?
any difference.
Okay,
Or
okay,
they'll-
okay.
Mr. Chairman, if on the stormwater management report that we prepared, Appendix C has a section, it's called Long-Term Stormwater Operations and Maintenance Measures. And it contains the items that Roger has asked for about.
Well, the problem is they aren't enforced unless they're on the conditions here.
They need to be put on the technical details section of your final set of drawings.
Oh, so add these just on the drawings?
Yes.
Easy enough.
Because what happens is that the drawings get signed by the chair, get filed on the land records.
Even though we put together a nice book, no one reads it.
Oh, we love the book. No, it was read. It was read, but
Actually, on page 7, you do have
Yeah.
the source control and the snow management. And I was going to sort of ask you in terms of, because you do say you're going to try to put it on the grass areas, but, sometimes when there's a significant amount of snow, you're never going to get it all on a grass area, especially on the west side.
Right.
So you have all those little, because there are some cuts, and then on the backside, there's, again, a fill that you're adding, so.
Find a place to put it.
Right. So, but somebody does read it.
Thank you.
So any other problems with the conditions? No problems with them? Okay. Any reason to keep it open? Except I'll go to, I know. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Okay. Good to see you again, and although you'll still have to give your name and address.
No,
But, know what?
no.
Maureen Mullen, 1625 King Street. I think it's great to hear of our new neighbor who's going to be coming to the area. I live just down the street, and as a member of the neighborhood and also of the faith community in this town, I think we're very blessed to have another church come to our area. We're looking forward to having them join the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak in favor or against the application? Anyone else would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. Now, Roger, any reason to keep it open, or any last words?
I don't know about last words in conjunction with the church. I mean.
Say amen.
Okay. Then I'll close public hearing 2875.
Roger, can you run through for me again those, the additional conditions that you put, the
Right.
Can't write fast enough.
I missed some, either C or D, I don't know, 11. I'm missing a few.
Okay, so the ones that were specific to this and, not our standard ones were the final submitted plans must be signed and sealed. We accepted them not signed and sealed to move it forward, but when they come in for the secretary to sign, they're going to be signed and sealed. Also, a lot of times the drawings, they say preliminary, not for construction or for permit purposes only. We would like to see that taken off the plans. No public programs shall take place upstairs, and that limits the upstairs to the employees of the church. A permit must be obtained from the health department for use of the kitchen. Number 11 was they need to supply the list of equipment and a description of the kitchen's main function. That's meeting a concern raised by the Water Pollution Control Authority, and that just assures that that they have done that. Because what is but the public doesn't know is, when they come back with these, they have to provide us with how they've met these. And so what they would do is have the list and say it's been reviewed by WPCA. And then 11A was no outdoor speakers. 11B was a parking lot and stormwater maintenance plan be added to the maps itself. And 11C is that the applicant will submit a lighting plan for the building.
Okay.
So if I mention 12 and 12A and 12B, there aren't any.
Thought I heard a D in there. So
Yeah,
I missed
you heard
the
a D the first time around.
And there's no D. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. You're the only one with the notes, Mary.
Go, Mary.
I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing 2875, 1551 King Street, New Day Church. Whereas the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has received a special use permit application, public hearing 2875 for a place of worship, New Day Church with exterior and interior improvements located at 1551 King Street, map 017, lot 0038, Business General Zone, King Street Design Overlay District. And whereas a public hearing was held on July 20th, 2017, and whereas the use and proposed site improvements are in general conformity with the Enfield zoning regulations, now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves public hearing 2875 for a place of worship, New Day Church, with associated exterior and interior improvements to be located at 1551 King Street, map 017, lot 0038, Business General Zone, King Street Overlay District, in accordance with the below referenced plans and the conditions. Let's see, we got 29 conditions with an additional 11A, B, and C. 11A, no outdoor speakers. 11B, parking lot and storm water maintenance plan. And C is they will submit a lighting plan. The applicant will submit him a lighting plan. And this is in a memo dated July 20th, 2017, from the Planning Department.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion? I think it's a great addition to town and excellent use of a abandoned building. Started off as a car dealership and morphed into other stores, and it's great to, I wish you much continued success. Any other?
Thank you. Welcome. You'll be right down the street from me, so we welcome new neighbors into our area. So, thank you.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? There's any abstentions? It's unanimous, and it's great to have you in town.
Yep.
We're excited to be a part of your community. I'm sure you will. Hope to read a lot about you in the paper. Thank you.
And this commission is going home.
You are.
We don't have any more application. It's past my bedtime,
Okay,
okay?
some of these older people.
We don't have any more. Miss Mullen, how are you?
Okay.
Anytime I see her is in church.
So that's good, that's good.
Yep.
Okay, you want to be excused?
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. Application to be received, 4 Connecticut Avenue. This is a change to zone. Did we find out whether he owns it or not, Roger?
Roger,
You can go.
he's not listening.
Roger?
Yeah, we're checking the application,
Well,
sir.
she wants permission to leave, I think.
Oh, she doesn't need my permission, sir.
It's a great meeting, ladies and gentlemen.
I thought Linda fell down.
Yeah, I did too.
Don't anybody move.
What was that, Linda?
The application is, the property is owned by Pamela Byrne, and Pamela Byrne has in the letter a file that says she gives Pride Limited Partnership the permission to perform every act necessary, requisite or proper to carry out the activities related to an application for the zone change. And it's signed and witnessed, so they
Okay.
don't own it, but they have the permission of the property owner.
Okay, so we have it at the, okay, we wondered though if he, okay.
Good night, thank you.
Did buy it. Okay, so that's on for the next time. I've jumped a little bit, I'll have to go back. Connecticut Avenue is taken care of, and how about 53 Manning Road? This is the same place, what's the story?
53 Manning Road has made changes based upon the direction that was received from this commission prior, which they were originally not happy with. They hired attorney Tom Fahey. We've had a couple of meetings with them. They have submitted revised drawings that they believe are responsive to the direction they received from the commission. So it's essentially a new application because it's substantially revised, but you also denied it without prejudice, so they can bring it back. So it's a self-storage facility on part of the property at 53 Manning Road.
Okay. It has no effect on the lawsuit,
The lawsuit was on 35 Manning Road.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 35 Manning Road on the other side of the street. That's an appeal to Superior Court of your denial of the modification of the conditions of approval. This is the other side of the street. But it is confusing, 35 and 53. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Transposition there.
I get a little bit. Okay, let's go back to number 9. Any correspondence?
Oh, I do have a question on the magazine we got. Find it. Yeah, that one. Roger, what is our?
Anything else?
What is our practice on development impact fees?
You don't have any, you don't, there are not.
Connecticut wasn't
Not
on the
you
list
don't,
here.
but there are not, there is no provision in your regulations currently for development impact fees.
Should we have them?
Should we have them? I think there's probably given 20 to 10 at night. We might want to put on a zoning workshop
I
session.
thought we talked about changing our fees because you were talking about.
Oh, no, but development impact fees is not like the fee for an application. A development impact fee would be something where if somebody's coming into the community and they're impacting the capacity of your schools or the capacity of your stormwater facilities or the road system or anything like that. Some communities put in place a development impact fee to recoup some of the impact of that development. It's a subject that I can get you literature on, and then we could discuss at a workshop if that would be acceptable.
Well, that would be another fee, that's.
Yeah, yeah.
I noticed that in the listings they have there, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and I think from New Hampshire don't have them.
Yeah.
Vermont, Rhode Island, and Maine do. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
I'm not sure. I would have to look it up because it's been a while since I've dealt with that subject.
Private
We would have
information
to
is
see
publication.
whether they were authorized by the Connecticut General Assembly. I'm just not sure, and I don't want to misspeak.
Yeah, I'm just curious about, because it was an interesting article in here. about
Right.
it, And,
Well, I'm glad you enjoy it, and that's why we provide them to you.
even at my age, I don't mind learning something once in a while.
My wife actually told me yesterday that the current edition of Planning Magazine was very interesting this month. So,
You haven't seen that, okay. Any further correspondence? Commissioners correspondence?
Well,
No,
actually,
everything's
yes.
happy? Linda hasn't seen, or Mary hasn't seen anything around town?
Well, I don't know if you were involved in it or not, but that site I mentioned a couple weeks ago is cleaned up.
we try to be responsive, sir. I've always said to people, you know, if
That's
you
what
give me
guys-
no more than 3, we'll try to work that list down. When we get that list
guys
down,
are-
give me 3 more.
I don't know if it was because you guys reacted to it or because they heard it on here or,
You know, sometimes it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's true.
there was a ton of skids and,
I have to say that between Rick and Anjo and Bobby, they're out there, they're doing
They
a
do a
tremendous
good
thing.
job.
I will say I misspoke at a prior meeting because I said there were 1,000 blight complaints in June. It was 100. So I added a 0.
That's a 0.
I just want to correct the record.
but at any rate, if you did it, thank you. You did somebody did a good job.
No, they do a good job, and I think that they have the respect to the community where, and a lot of times, just a phone call to somebody or stop by and leave them a note, because the compliance rate they're able to accomplish without actually having to file a formal citation or is really remarkable.
Rich seems to have a nice way about him when he approaches.
Oh, absolutely. We did issue, I mean, it's not under that, but at a later point, I can talk about enforcement whenever it's appropriate.
Because, Mr. Chair, I just did want to put a plug in there for the Economic Development Commission did have a TIF, a tax increment financing presentation yesterday. And for anybody who missed it, it is on Facebook, and it's very informative. And I believe that, we should definitely, all take a look at that if we.
Tax incentives, yes.
Yeah, if we did miss it, and get in tune, because that will be coming before us, so that we should be as knowledgeable as we possibly can in that subject.
Yeah.
Under Director of Planning's report, I'm happy to cede any time, as he may desire, to Michael if he wants to. Michael, did you want to say anything? Okay. What we were able to do, and had a good conversation with Michael earlier about this, but we met with the Brickmore development, which owns the Costco, Home Depot, Plaza, State Line Plaza, and they're looking to create a pad on the site with a new restaurant. And as we were discussing what the requirements would be, we determined that This commission has had a lot of conversations over the last year about the need to bring buildings closer to the street, to not have a restaurant or something surrounded by a sea of parking on all four sides. So what I did to try to address some of those issues, because immediately when we suggest changes to how it could be operated, we're finding that, well, we have provisions in our current regulations that wouldn't allow it. For example, in the business regional district, we have a minimum 100-foot setback from the street, which, doesn't allow you to move the building up to the street. So in order to keep us on a schedule, and not prejudging what the commission may or may not do with it, I drafted some changes to the business regional zone to more in line with what we might want to see as things are redeveloped, and sent them out to the CROG for the August 24th hearing as well. So I didn't have a chance to make copies for you tonight. I'll get them out to you tomorrow. But it's if we're going to bring about better design that we're thinking about, then I wanted to start that conversation. The second thing was with respect to parking. If you look at all of our shopping centers, and there's like a sea of parking not used. The parking regulations were pre-Amazon, pre-online shopping, and so we probably have the highest parking ratio of any comparable town. So I asked Flaherty, I'm sorry, not Flaherty, Fitzgerald and Halliday to provide me with a quick and dirty recommendation on the best practices with respect to the parking ratios. We have a tremendous potential in Enfield to recapture some of that sea of asphalt and actually put buildings on it that would contribute to the tax rolls and create a whole different ambiance for our retail shopping centers. In order to do that, we've got to stop mandating parking for the Friday after Thanksgiving in 1972. And so in drafting all of the regulations that I did, without having the opportunity to discuss the details with you, I drafted them in such a manner that you can make them more restrictive than what I drafted, and therefore, if you're not comfortable with them. The other thing we did in looking at the parking regulations is that in 4 or 5 categories, you have things where the parking is dependent upon the number of employees. A number of employees is just like impossible to track on any given day or any given year. So we tried to standardize them based upon gross leasable area. Gross leasable area is a term that's defined in the industry. We know what it is, and it can be supplied by any building owner. So instead of saying, the number of employees you have, which, to determine that, what if they hire more people and they have more parking? So that was another change we're recommending. And then when it came to on restaurants, what we did on the restaurant parking code you have says based on number of seats. Well, what if they add seats or what have you? And so the standard now is patron floor area. You know what the patron floor. You know how much space they have to put seats. So that would be also a much easier way to calculate parking for restaurants. And then the other thing we looked at was the maximum building coverage and maximum impervious surface coverage. It's kind of interesting. In Thompsonville, you allow a building to take up 85% of the lot. And in the regional shopping center district, you only allow 20% of the lot to have building coverage. And it's kind of like one may be a little high and one may be a little low. So we took a look at other standards and we put forward some changes. So I hope you're comfortable with that. It's in the spirit of let's get them out there, let's get public reaction to them. And it's initiated by the commission, so there's no time clock on them. You're not under it. You can discuss them, have a public hearing, not open a public hearing, whatever you want to do with them. But at least it starts it. If you find that they're comfortable, or you might want to tweak them a little bit, I think it would help us tremendously as we try to address the revitalization or the repurposing of our large retail areas.
Well, that's what we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I read the plan of development, and I've been listening to this commission for the last year. I believe that what we've put out there is in keeping with that, but you guys are the ultimate judge of that.
I think the reason for the different discrepancies you mentioned there downtown T-ville is because the lots were so tiny and small
Right.
that they wanted them almost to build out entirely. In fact, we changed the lot way back to allow them to come up to the sidewalk.
Right.
Did we take a survey of what actually existed
Yeah,
and then
I think-
use that in determining that percentage?
Well, one of the things I've heard several times on the T-ville discussion was that you were concerned that by allowing different types of higher density housing around the train station, the TOD, that you could combine lots, and if you combine the lots and then you had 85% lot coverage, then that was very significant. So I mean, there's a couple of ways to get at that. One is a floor area ratio, which is a different way to address what the bulk of a building is on a site. But the other thing I was thinking about is you can leave 85% for all existing buildings, but you can reduce it for new construction. And so if you're combining a bunch of lots and you're doing new construction, maybe you don't get 85%. Maybe you don't want 85%.
Well,
So it's a good start to those conversations. But what we put in place as a proposal to go to public hearing on the 24th is consistent with the approach in your design districts, which is try to move the buildings closer to the street, create pedestrian. Like, I can't see putting a restaurant on a pad in a shopping center and have car circulation completely around it and a sea of parking. There's no reason why we couldn't move it up the street, put some landscaping in there and pedestrian amenities. And Mary wants to know what that amenity is. It's a bench. It's it's a walkway. It's not getting run over as you're walking through the drive-through lane. So that's my report for tonight, being 10 to 10, and we also have. I also met with, and I believe Michael's meeting with them next week as well, the proposal down that's called Metro. And that has two large buildings. We met with the owner of that site and his engineer, made some suggested changes. They're moving forward to go to Inland Wetland Commission, ASAP. And then they would be coming here. That's two large buildings. Then you have Frank Troiano's project on Elm Street, opposite Town Fair Tire, is moving forward to go to wetlands ASAP as well, and that will be coming here. And there are several other developments that, folks are either talking to me or talking to Michael or talking to Peter Bryington or one of us about, but they're not really ready to, go public with. But it is a very, very busy time, very positive things, and we're seeing development across all specters. It's not just industrial, it's not just distribution. It's office, it's medical, and it's retail. And I think it bodes well for a very, very robust year. And so.
Well, I would like to go back to getting our material on Friday night because it's an awful thing to try to get all that.
Right, and this past week we had, we were dealing with two significant applications Tuesday night at Inland Wetlands. We have the Zoning Board of Appeals on the 31st, and we had this meeting here tonight with a huge volume of materials.
Well, if we have to, then, if we can't get something changed, can we get those on Friday and limit what's on our agenda and not take up so heavy ones? We had too many heavy ones tonight, and you can't do.
Right. One of the things I was saying is that we deliver all this to you, and then you have to bring it all back. We could also work out something that you don't have to carry it all back.
But this was too many heavy ones to spend your time and really do a thorough job on.
Roger, it's just a question because I hear what our chairman is saying is if you can't get us this information physically on Friday, can we at least get it in an email and start kind of reading it?
Some of,
even I don't know if you could even put these plans on an as an attachment. You may not be able to really see everything.
We have
but
all of those plans scanned in, and we can send them out to anybody digitally.
that would be, I think that would help if you can't
Rich
get
Marks
that.
is all up, and I like to.
Yeah,
too,
but I'm
so-
just saying is if we can't get it on Friday, at least have it sent to us by email, and then Monday deliver us these
I
plans.
thought that maybe it's wetlands, but one of them, it was scanned in.
Yes, wetlands, we sent everything out by digital this
was helpful.
month.
But I don't want the plans scanned in because I want to be able to look
That's-
at them
yeah,
without a
absolutely.
Well,
magnifying
yeah, but I'm
glass.
just saying is if they can't get them to us on Friday, at least we'd have them, we can start going through them, and then Monday, when they do deliver them, then you have them, and you've
my
already seen it.
Well, you're-
you've got a
Concern.
Well, if they're-
You remember, Commissioner, with respect to that, it's kind of an interesting thing because we were bringing all the plans the night you're accepting something. So, for example, tonight we would bring 53 Manning Road and the other two. We were giving them to you, and then we thought, well, you could take those home, and then we wouldn't have to deliver them. But you said, no, we don't want to take them home, and so we just have to work it out, and we're committed to working it out, whatever works
I'm
the
just
best.
trying to get
Some of you want stuff, your books. Some don't want your books. Some of you we give an envelope to. Some we give the big book
And
to.
I
problem
understand,
is
but
that-
I'm just saying is if I can at least get it to start looking at
Right.
it. And
No,
then
I'm
when
with
I
you.
get the plans on Monday, then I have the physical paper in my hand to
I'm
look
with you.
at it.
Thing, a lot of people aren't working Saturday and Sunday, and they have the 2 days that they can spend looking at the things. But that's one thing, and other people have other responsibilities other days. And usually Saturday or Sunday, at least you have 2 days maybe you can get a hold of them. And
Solve the issue of it's too heavy to carry back.
Well, you
So
just need to get us
not
rolling
have,
suitcases from now
I
on. We need
mean,
rolling bags.
Commissioner Higley brought a rolling suitcase with her tonight.
take one or two of the heavy ones, the new ones, like the church, and maybe one other tonight. Take only 2 of them. and schedule the others out so that we aren't having the heavy ones, the multiple brand new ones. I mean, it's all right, like you had Olive Garden, which we're very familiar with, and we're only waiting for a couple of things. That could have gone on tonight. And you had the Shaker Heights, which was really all caught up. That would have been all right. But then to throw in the others, and the other thing, I don't know if he wants his back, but I take my notes that I have from the drawings. I don't need the drawings back again if they're the old ones, and I got the old Olive Garden all over again. I don't need those again. The new ones, yeah. But that was
Well, one of the things that we're dealing with in this time of year is that you don't meet again to August 24th. So, there were applicants who were, we're trying to accommodate them. So I understand what you're saying, but, just understand the other point of view. And
well, if we don't,
we'll work it out.
If we don't have the people to handle it, you've got to do something. And I talked to Michael, and if we can't get somebody up there, then we'll have to cut back and only take one or two, and they'll have to understand that.
But you're only going for 2
If I have to open it and we get it a different date, then we'll have to give it a different date, but we'll have to watch how many go on the agenda.
Yeah,
Which
well,
is another thing. Make sure
the thing about Enfield is that many communities in Connecticut only have one planning and zoning meeting a month, and so
Well, if they're ready, then
and
we'll
that's
have to go
kind of
more.
and that's kind of like what we're running into right now. So
Well, we've had.
no, Mr. Chairman, we're going to work it out.
I know.
We're going to work it out.
Absolutely. I hate to slow it down, but if we've got to, that's what we'll have to. And I didn't see the agenda, by the way, this year. I should be getting the agenda ahead of time. Okay, and we'll just have to limit it. And if there are heavy ones, one heavy one a night would be enough.
Keeps us in shape.
Yeah, it does. Well, no, I mean heavy as far as the amount of work that goes into it. A brand-new applicant like the church or... Okay. Anything else?
Well, thank you for for your work. I think you made 5 customers very happy tonight.
Well,
And you were also demonstrated your thoroughness in terms of how you review the documents, and I continue to be impressed. I've worked with commissions that they don't even get the plans. They had 3 sets of plans that would sit on the table, and they'd look at them if they had to. This commission is extremely diligent.
That's what bothers me.
They're extremely diligent. You're extremely diligent, and I commend you for that.
Rich, Rich has been a good addition too, and Linda, and now we have Gina down there. And I think we've got a good commission, even though we've had the changes.
Well, the other.
Oh, gee.
The other thing is, the other thing is, I like the way you think about things, and you try to anticipate what's coming down, so that you initiate something, like you were talking about the housing in Thompsonville and so on. You start thinking about it, and you start initiating a process, and you get us thinking about it, and you move things forward instead of waiting to react. We're proactive. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
The earlier meeting that I was at, now I'll just go through, and maybe Rich has heard it before. We met with Michael, chairman and vice chairs at different places, and he went over some of his thoughts on things, past history and present happenings, and where definitely what he was thinking of, which was helpful. Farmlands and running out of industrial areas and what we could do about it. I also raised a question that we talked about before, what do we do about zoning down if and when we get the gambling down in East Windsor next on our thing, and what do we do about any zoning down in there? And so it was interesting.
The only other thing I think I need to bring up is, Michael, do you want the commission to hold August 9th as a possible meeting? No? No? Okay.
Yeah, that was one thing, because he had down as the next Monday, and we didn't have a chance to talk with each other, but we should set up another meeting date, but if it's so that we could set it when we have a meeting here, let us know when the meeting is, rather than sending it out and everybody has to reply, then it's sort of haphazard. The best way to do it is set it here. In other words, he wants a meeting, is let you know on a night that we're having a meeting. Do we have a planning meeting scheduled? No?
I think Mary wants to make a motion.
Okay, but we don't have a planning meeting scheduled in...
Oh, your next planning meeting is the second Thursday in September.
Okay. And now this date that's on here, August 24th, is that
August 24th is when you adopted your... August 24th, when you adopted your calendar back last December. You normally don't meet at all in August, but you said you would have one meeting in August, and you decided to take off the early part of August, and you would have one meeting in August. So that would be your next meeting, and at this point in time, it would be a lot the public hearing, mainly the public hearings on the zoning text changes and the map for Skidco.
Oh, okay, so that should not be long. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion's made to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you for a very fruitful...